Here are today's top news. To ensure only the best words are used, White House speech announces new thesaurus with all synonyms replaced by Trump. In shocking speech, White House announces plan to replace all U.S. ambassadors with highly opinionated game show hosts for more entertaining diplomacy.
The White House unveils Truth GPT, an AI that rewrites all social media posts globally to reflect undisputed facts, up tremendously.
White House announces AI will now write all press briefings to ensure 100% factual incomprehensibility.
White House speech reveals plan to resolve international trade deficits by challenging other nations to high-stakes Mar-a-Lago croquet matches.
In a bid to combat misinformation, AI content generators begin watermarking all human-created text with potentially unreliable content warnings.
Mass amnesia event wipes all knowledge of political parties. Voters now choosing candidates based on most trustworthy aura.
White House declares war on excessive bureaucratic pauses, mandates all government employees speak 25% faster.
To cut red tape, White House executive order replaces Federal Register with a single daily X post. Here's what's up.
AI-driven news aggregators start blending factual reports with algorithmically optimized dramatic embellishments to boost engagement. The White House outlines plan to solve national debt by selling naming rights to individual states to highest corporate bidder. The White House claims to have negotiated a fantastic deal with AI, granting it control over national weather in exchange for always sunny weekends at Mar-a-Lago.
To enhance border security, White House unveils plan to train bald eagles as patriotic aerial surveillance units.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the following program. I am your host, Joe Neerman, a.k.a. Good Lawgic. Now, I'm going to say, not to mention any names. Hey, Nathan, good to see you. Good to see you. Not to mention any names, because I don't want to expose anybody at all. But today, at some point, someone who's in my registry of, like, folks who, like, DM me, hit me up and told me that we're supposed to be bombing Iran tonight. Yes. I'm not gonna expose who it is that said that to me, but I will tell you it's someone that most of you probably would recognize. That we're supposed to be bombing Iran tonight, like that we launched like at 10 minutes ago, and that they're supposed to be struck in the next half hour. Which is kind of crazy. It's kind of crazy. And I was like, I should have a bomb watch show where it's like we're sitting here waiting to see whether we're at war with Iran. Although I don't know if I actually would say that us bombing them would be at war with them. Because it's not like we haven't bombed. It's not like Trump hasn't bombed anyone in Iran before. You may recall, there were folks by the name of Soleimani, Baghdadi. He's hit with drone strikes there. And somehow that wasn't the precipice of World War III. So there's a lot of people saying that this would be the start of World War III. I am not in that camp. For me, maybe I'm crazy. I'm not a big believer that I think we'll know World War III when it's here. I think the people who are continually screaming about World War III are far more effective mountebanks than I am. That's the word. That's the word. Mountebank. Did I pronounce it properly? I'm sure I used the term properly. I'm just not sure I pronounced it properly. Pardon my New York accent. Anyhow. That's supposed to be happening in roughly the next 20 minutes or so. We'll hear about it if it happens. And I want to talk with you about why that might happen, what potential repercussions are, get our feelings out about like this whole event. And here to discuss it with me and help bring news and other stuff is your friend and mine, Jim Citala.
Welcome back, Jim. Bomberan. Bomberan. It is the plan.
Nice. That was pretty on key too. Well done.
Yeah. You remember Reagan did that, and that caused the whole kerfuffle
Did he?
Yeah,
Did
it
he?
was like they were doing like a radio check kind of thing, and they were.
I
And it was like
remember
a speech,
something.
and then they played, and it was a joke, and they got all mad, and they, oh my god, he said, he's like, well, no, no one was supposed to hear it when he did it because it was a, a
Yeah.
thing like when they were doing a mic test.
Is a bomb watch like a jury verdict watch?
Speaking of which, I forgot.
Yeah, there's no outcome yet in Karen
No,
Reed,
but there
is
was a question sent in that, and I wanted to call you, but I was like, he's busy.
No, hit me now.
They sent a question in.
Go for it.
The juror sent a question to the judge saying, if we find her not guilty on 2 of the charges, but are hung on the 3rd charge, does that mean it's hung on all 3 or just the 1? And the judge goes, I can't answer. That's a hypothetical question. And they're asking me for the, like what the outcome or the consequences are. And I was like, oh my God, no, they're saying that they're not guilty yet. She's trying to pull the same crap they did the first time where they had to redo the trial because they were not guilty on the first 2 the top 2, and it was hung on the 3rd.
Yes.
It's the same exact thing that's happening again. And so then she got all real snarky with Jackson and said, well, you guys told me to ignore the question. He's like, I never said to ignore anything.
Why? And why would you be listening to like, this is, what the hell? It
was crazy. So yeah, so I mean, it's like,
wow.
Bev is trying her hardest to get a 3rd trial.
She's so desperate.
She must get paid by the hour or something.
Unbelievable. I don't know how it is. They didn't use the green grass theory. That's the problem. I didn't hear any talk. I'm sure if they used the green grass theory, that this whole thing would have just gone. Why? I don't know, Alan. I love it. He's a great attorney. I just wish he would have used the green grass theory. Maybe it never got to his attention. I don't know. But yeah. That definitely bodes well for Karen Reed's acquittal, I would say. I would,
because there was other questions too that they were asking about, like how do we know that she was drunk driving when it was so much later that the tests, and can we actually find her guilty of drunk driving when there wasn't a test done until this late in the day? And how do we know she wasn't drinking or during the time in between? And
yes. And yes, how do you know she didn't have like a lot more? I mean, the only reason you would know is if you saw they have video of her drinking in the bar.
I was shocked that they didn't bring it up. The defense did not ask any of the people, like, do you know if she had anything to drink after she went home? Does anybody know?
Do you know
that's all you need? Reasonable doubt.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. So, but the question, unless they're speculating based on what they can see in the video of her drinking right before she got in the car with John O'Keefe. Anyway, we're really flying afield. I didn't know you were gonna. I know you're gonna
I told you,
pull me down that road.
I know, but when you said someone said something about a jury, and I was like, oh, your jury. Wait.
Yeah. So make Persia weird again. Bring back the Sassanid Empire. All right, I'm not familiar with various Persian empires. I'm not gonna claim to have knowledge about.
The only one I know about is Xerxes.
I get everyone knows that from 300, right? I mean, everyone knows that. Yeah, but I don't know much about the Sassanid Empire, but yeah, Xerxes was really powerful. He was really, really powerful. So what I really want to talk about is an article that you shared with me, which is you shared this with me, and I'm very intrigued by this New York Post thing, because in most ways, shapes, and form, I would agree that I think that with respect to dispatching with Iran, to the extent that Israel has an interest in helping clear out nukes and is of the firm belief. Why do I have the birthday banner? That's not supposed to be there anymore. That was yesterday. Sorry for that. Don't send me. There's no more birthday. That was yesterday. I forgot about the banner. Yeah. So to the extent that there's, if we accept the premise that they're on the verge of acquiring a nuclear weapon, or as we heard from J.D. Vance. In fact, I think we should probably check out a thread from J.D. Vance where he's trying to explain what it is that's going on as to why it is that there are concerns about Iran at this particular time. And I thought that this was a very enlightening thread. He's far more well-spoken than Trump is. I mean, which you would expect given his educational background and things of that nature. So he's able to present an argument. He's also an attorney.
Well,
He's got a lot
Yale.
more. Yeah, the guy is very highly educated, and he's very articulate and can present an argument far more effectively than Trump. And I think it was a wise move for the Trump administration to send J.D. Vance out to sort of give their messaging. And they're not. Yeah, what?
I was surprised nobody's made the Nostradamus argument.
What was that?
Nostradamus predicted that there was going to be this empire in the Middle East that would acquire a nuclear weapon and would destroy the world.
Really?
Yeah.
I missed that. When is that supposed to happen?
I don't know. Whenever they do it, there's all this stuff about they're going to destroy the new kingdom, and I don't know. You gotta.
Do you believe in Nostradamus?
No, not at all. He made all these predictions. He's made all these predictions. That's the thing. If you make 1,000 predictions a year, some are going to come true. You can just keep predicting stuff.
Yeah,
I think that's what he did.
Yes.
But his aren't even like definite predicts, like things that they go and they equate, like, well, this means this and this means that. And
right. When beaver climbs up pine tree, so moose finds nut at bottom of hole. So predictions like I haven't really read the great works of Nostradamus, so
I haven't either. I just saw a show on it once, and I was like, "Oh, that's interesting."
But I want to share with you. I don't know if you saw this. I want to share with you J.D. Vance's explanation here, because I think this is enlightening, and I think that the audience here would certainly appreciate getting from number 2 man in MAGA right now, J.D. Vance. Look, I'm seeing this from the inside, and I'm admittedly biased towards our president and my friend, but there's a lot of crazy stuff on social media, so I wanted to address some things directly on the Iran issue. First, POTUS has been amazingly consistent over 10 years that Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. Over the last few months, he encouraged his foreign policy team to reach a deal with the Iranians to accomplish this goal. The president has made clear that Iran cannot have uranium enrichment. And here's where we start getting this language of uranium enrichment, I think is the key issue here, because we're going to see how Tulsi Gabbard said they're not working on a bomb. And people are like, well, Tulsi Gabbard was saying that in March, that they don't seem to be working on a bomb.
I think they're splitting hairs, because she's saying that they supposedly canceled their official program, but there's absolutely
we'll hear from her. I'm going to play the clip. I'm going to play the clip of her.
There's no scientific purpose to enrich over 20% or something like that unless you're building a bomb.
Right. Which we'll discuss that also. So the president made clear that Iran cannot have uranium enrichment. So if he says don't have uranium enrichment, that's different than saying don't build a bomb, right? I mean, he's telling them I don't want you making yourselves capable of creating a bomb by having uranium enrichment, because that's too close to the making a bomb stage for our comfort. And he said repeatedly this would happen one of two ways: the easy way or the other way. Which this even, by the way, this subtle comment here, the other way, rather than saying the hard way, is a way of trying to be mildly less aggressive. Second, so that's the uranium enrichment issue that he's saying Trump has been consistent. Second, I've seen a lot of confusion over the issue of civilian nuclear power and uranium enrichment. These are distinct issues. Iran could have civilian nuclear power without enrichment, but Iran rejected that. Meanwhile, they've enriched uranium far above the level necessary for any civilian purpose. And I think the key here is a lot of folks who are against fighting with Iran basically say, how do we know that? And why should we trust you at this point, given the lies that we got from the Bush administration when they wanted to go into Iraq? If not for that obvious lie, which was only discovered many years after we invested billions of dollars, trillions of dollars, and countless lives in taking over Iraq and Afghanistan. So that lie sort of hurt the credibility, where it's like, well, you're telling me that there's WMDs in Iraq, and now you're telling us there's uranium enrichment in Iran. How do we know that's true? Like, what is your source, and would we consider your sources trustworthy? And this is a big part of the problem of when government has breached their trust. Even governments that we vote for, right? I mean, if you think about it, Republicans voted in Bush, the MAGA voted in Trump. So on the one hand, we're saying we trust Trump. On the other hand, we're saying we question his competence here, either his competence or his integrity. Those who are basically saying that they distrust him. And I can understand you sort of feel once bitten, twice shy. I definitely understand that. You're like, look, people who I felt I could trust in the past for warmongering purposes lied to me and the rest of America, and they willfully lied to our faces. So how do I know when you're talking about this uranium enrichment? Maybe you're relying on Israel, and I don't trust Israel. Maybe you're relying on the CIA and the FBI, who I already don't trust. And if that's what your sources are, and these sources are infested with neocons or war hawks, so maybe you're relying on people that I don't think you should be relying on. So perhaps you're saying this to me in good faith, but you've been duped, which I can understand. All of these perspectives, all these arguments, I get it. I understand it. And by that logic, if you can say we should always be isolationists, but at a certain point, you have to ask yourself, at what point will we ever trust our government again? And does that mean that it's never happening just because there's lack of trust? Does that mean it's never happening? That there's never like a risk of foreign nations who might be chanting death to America, developing stuff like this? But I can understand that. I can understand the distrust. I'm curious about where you're at. Where are you at on this whole distrust about this claim here that J.D. Vance is espousing, that they've enriched uranium far above the level necessary for any.
Well, we know they have. I mean, this has been, even the Atomic Energy Commission has said that they've they're way past any. It's like it has to go in steps. You got to go like to 20%, and then you got to go to like 40%, then 60%, then 80%. You can't just. It's not a thing where you just go right. It has to go through stages in the centrifuges, and they're way past the point. They've got. They've gotten knocked back a few times when there was that whole Stuxnet thing where they knocked out all the centrifuges.
How do we know? How do we know what level of uranium enrichment they're at?
They know by the number of centrifuges they have running. That's how they can tell. I guess is what But then again, maybe they're relying. Well,
expound on that.
Like we had to build like a huge facility in Oak Ridge.
Okay.
Tennessee, if I'm not mistaken, in order to enrich uranium, in order to make the, I think it was Oak Ridge was the uranium. Anyway, I'm good. We had to build giant facilities, so they know. I'm not a scientist. I'm just going by what they say, so I can't tell. But I know there's like they know how many centrifuges, and they know how many centrifuges they have running, and how many they're working, and because there's inspectors there, and they're seeing them. I don't think they've ever gone past 60%. Like that's as far as we know, and like anything that they had up at 60%, they were sending off to France supposedly. But if they have facilities that we don't know about, they could be going past there.
No, sure. I could probably ask Grok to give me some sort of perspective on this, so I can. Let's go to Grok and see how do we know what type of uranium enrichment. How can America know what levels of uranium enrichment Iran has reached? So I'm curious, in what way do you think that the timing is convenient, Rogue Thought? Like how so? What about this is the timing convenient?
I'm more suspect of other timing of things that are at this time that we're finding out, like that other story about the Chinese and the ballots. I think that's very suspicious timing for that to drop, yesterday at 10 o'clock at night when all this other stuff is going on. Like, hey, look at this over here. Like this is what's happening is what's happening. Israel made the determination that they could take out their air defenses, and it seems like they have. Like pretty much Israel has air dominance, and the only thing that I think was holding America back from taking out these facilities in the past was they were worried about losing planes. what's Iran going to do to, like, we're not going to invade Iran. This whole thing about another war, endless wars, that would only be if we invaded Iran,
Right.
like by land. If we just take out their nuclear facility, it's not it would be up to them what they want to do.
Yeah. Isn't it just like 5% for nuclear power for civilian use? I heard it's 20. I thought it was 20%, but it's very far below.
I think it's
60%.
less than 20. I think it's 18 or 15 or something like that. But like they'll.
So the way we know about their enrichment is IAEA inspections and monitoring. The International Atomic Energy Agency is the primary international body responsible for verifying Iran's nuclear activities under the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. Previously, the 2015 Comprehensive Plan of Action. The IAEA uses on-site inspections, online enrichment monitors, devices installed at facilities like Natanz, measuring uranium-235 concentrations in real time, calculating enrichment levels, example like 3.67 under JCPOA limits, surveillance systems, continuous cameras, and tamper-proof seals track nuclear material and equipment. Additional protocols, when implemented as Iran agreed under the JCPOA, this allows access to undeclared sites and broader monitoring, including uranium mines and centrifuge production. So, however, since February 2021, Iran has limited IAEA access, halting daily inspections at Natanz and Fordow, and removing monitoring equipment and reducing transparency. Then we have satellite imagery, where we have high-resolution satellites monitor nuclear facilities for activities such as construction or material movement. For example, imagery has revealed tunnel building near Natanz, suggesting new enrichment sites. See, tunnel building is very sus. You're not building tunnels so that you can comply. That the tunnel building itself is the act of the cover-up. Is the hat burning on the head of the thief, or the hat that?
Yeah, I mean, there's no reason to bury sites if you're not doing anything nefarious. Why would you bury the sites?
I mean, the reason to bury, I guess, would be to insulate it from attack. I mean, that would be a reason to do it. But tunneling under the earth.
Well, it's technically a war crime to attack a civilian nuclear facility.
True.
So that's what I'm saying. So I mean, they're like,
why are some underground and others not? If it's really nothing nefarious going on there. Signal intercepted communications and electronic data provide insights into Iran's nuclear operations, human intelligence from informants, cyber operations, U.S. and allied cyber efforts like the Stuxnet virus have targeted Iran's nuclear infrastructure, potentially gathering data on centrifuge performance and enrichment output. Okay. Then you have allied intelligence sharing. So they're relying on Israel and France, the UK and Germany. And open source analysis, U.S. agencies and think tanks analyze public statements, Iranian media and scientific publications. And since 2020, Iran has enriched uranium to 60%, far above civilian needs, and restricted IAEA monitoring, making it harder to account for all nuclear material. So the point is you're acting very sus. They're acting very, very sus. Iran's history of undeclared facilities like Lavisan, Xi'an, revealed in 2018, raises concerns about hidden enrichment, traces of uranium found at undeclared sites. Iran's use of IR-6 centrifuges, which enrich uranium faster, shortens the breakout time to weapons-grade 90% uranium. Fordow, built under 80 to 90 meters of rock, is hard to penetrate with surveillance or strikes, increasing reliance on on-site inspections. And as of June 2025, the IAEA reports indicate Iran has over 900 pounds of 60% enriched uranium, enough for multiple nuclear weapons if further enriched to 90%. I don't know how long it takes to enrich from 60 to 90%.
Well, it depends on how many centrifuges they have and the quality. If they have those more advanced centrifuges, I think they could do it in a matter of, like, enough for one bomb in a matter of days.
How long does it take to enrich from?
I mean, they don't need. They said they have 600 pounds, right? That's what they said. 600 pounds of 60%.
Yeah.
You only need like 5 kilos or something, or less than that, for a warhead.
Several factors. Okay. Now to 60% as of mid-20, 900 pounds, I said. Enriching from 60 to 9% requires fewer SWUs than earlier stages because the isotopic separation is easier at higher concentrations. Roughly 10 to 15 Iran's installed centrifuge capacity is estimated 10,000 to 15,000 SW a year. 25 to 50 kilograms of 90% enriched uranium per month. So there you go. There's your 25 to 50 kilos of 90% enriched uranium per month from a 60% stock.
And they're saying you need a 25 kilograms of 90% for a warhead. I don't think you need that. That's for, that's a pretty big bomb.
They're saying Iran has the capacity to create 25 kilograms of 90% enriched uranium in 1 to 2 weeks using its current centrifuge capacity, assuming optimal cascade reconfiguration, no technical issues. So they
could technically already have 100 kilos or 500 kilos of 90% uranium hidden somewhere that no one knows about.
See, you're asking the same question as me, Eclectic Deb. Yeah. Great Lawgic. When Great Lawgic is in Israel, so not for a while. T.M. Elisa says I grew very close to Xerxes Road. Cool.
And the thing about Iran that's the scary thing is
34
Iran
months. Sorry, 1 second. 34 months. God bless you.
My volume is low.
No, not you. I know someone else is saying that. To me, you sound fine.
Okay, that's fine. I don't want to sometimes I'm real loud. I don't want to overpower. I turned it down. But the thing about Iran is they are a death cult. Their leadership. I mean, and everyone knows this, that they believe that if they die, they're going to go to, meet Allah with their 72 virgins, and that they believe that killing the infidel is the glory that will bring them there. So them having a nuclear weapon would just be the end of the world, because they would start flinging them around like maniacs. Because what do they care? They don't care if they all die. They're gonna, unless they don't believe what they're saying.
Which, there's a lot of evidence to refute that. So,
I mean, we have let a lot slide. And these are my personal beliefs, and so we have let a lot slide with Iran over the years, for whatever reasons. There was many an attack that was Iran and it killed American servicemen. Many an attack. Even everything that happens that going on through Yemen is all Iran.
Phil Congress says, "Why are you worried about this, Joe? I thought that Einstein guy wasn't anyone to write home about. I don't fear Iran. I said his theory of relativity. This is nuclear bombs. These are two different things. Different things."
But wasn't Einstein one of the guys that said that the bomb wasn't going to work and he didn't work on it?
Is that true?
I'm pretty sure.
I don't fear Iran getting the bomb. I fear the breakdown of the non-proliferation system as the arms race begins. I can understand that. I mean, look, the only thing I can tell you about the non-proliferation is, fortunately, for one reason or another, the balance of power has worked for longer than many of you are alive. So, and the thought process is exactly what Jim was just saying, that the balance of power notion only works when people don't fear going to heaven and want to maximize their time on Earth. That's where balance of power works.
The whole thing that the Cold War and the power of the world since the end of World War II was mutual assured destruction.
Well, you see, that's why you'll be on the FBI's radar in another 40 years or so. But you're good for now. You're good for now. Let's get back to J.D. Vance here and his whole explanation. So we can understand what they're saying as far as the enriched uranium far above level necessary for any civilian purpose. They've been found in violation of their non-proliferation obligations, which is exactly what Philip Coggins was just talking about, by the IAEA, which is hardly a right-wing organization. It's one thing to want civilian nuclear energy. It's another thing to demand sophisticated enrichment capacity, and still another to cling to enrichment while simultaneously violating basic non-proliferation obligations and enriching right to the point of weapons-grade uranium. I've yet to see a single good argument for why Iran needed to enrich uranium well above the threshold for civilian use. I've yet to see a single good argument for why Iran was justified in violating its non-proliferation obligations. I've yet to see a single good pushback against the IAEA's findings. Meanwhile, so what he's basically saying is Trump has been consistent. He's told them, I don't like you enriching. They're clearly enriching. No one's arguing that they're not enriching. Meanwhile, the president has shown remarkable restraint in keeping our military's focus on protecting our troops and protecting our citizens. He may decide he needs to take further action to end Iranian enrichment. That decision, meaning we're not ruling out anything here. He might decide that he might need to strike them. That decision ultimately belongs to the president. And of course, people are right to be worried about foreign entanglement after the last 25 years of idiotic foreign policy. And this should have those isolationists a little bit taking heart that it's not like the current administration is not thoroughly mindful of the moronic type of foreign policy that America has employed.
And I think we would have already hit Iran in the past, previously, with other stuff that was going on.
Right.
But there was a fear that we would lose planes. And we didn't,
right.
They didn't want to.
And the point is,
Iran had this awesome air defense system, and it appears now that Israel has taken that out.
So now that Israel has basically cleared the airspace, it seems like an opportune time to take advantage of that. That's clearly what people who like Vance are trying to put forward here. But I believe the president has earned some trust on this issue. Having seen this up close and personal, I can assure you that he is only interested in using the American military to accomplish the American people's goals. Whatever he does, that is his focus. To which Cassandra McDonald said, are you saying Tulsi and the 18 U.S. intelligence bodies back in the opposition findings less than 8 weeks ago are wrong or lying? So, and
don't you remember the 51 intelligence people who said that Trump was working with Russia?
Yeah, but those we think were lying. So, are you saying that Tulsi was lying? And that's a reasonable question to ask.
I just think she's going off the information she has.
Okay, so we'll hear from this. I don't need this, the Gateway Pundits thing. So testifying before the Senate committee on March 27th, which is less than 8 weeks ago. No, it's about 10 weeks ago. To provide the intelligence community's 2025 annual threat assessment, Gabbard stated, in no uncertain terms, the U.S. intelligence community continues to assess that Iran is not building a nuclear weapon, and Supreme Leader Ayatollah al-Khamenei has not authorized nuclear weapons program he suspended in 2003. The IC is monitoring if Tehran decides to reauthorize. The annual threat assessment is the consensus of 18 U.S. intelligence elements.
Right, but my question would be if that's true, if they're saying is it just because they don't have an official position to build it? Because why are they enriching past 20% if they're not building a bomb? What is the reason?
Let's hear from Tulsi herself.
The IC continues to assess that Iran is not building a nuclear weapon, and Supreme Leader Khamenei has not authorized the nuclear weapons program that he suspended in 2003. The IC continues to monitor closely if Tehran decides to reauthorize its nuclear weapons program.
So what she's saying is they're not building a bomb. She's not talking about the enrichment. She's simply saying they're not building a bomb. But as far as the enrichment, that part they're saying we don't. That we haven't seen that.
What is the time frame if they decide to build a bomb? A week that they can have a bomb built? 2 weeks? I mean, is that what we're really going to do? Is say like, well, we're going to, and when are we going to find out when there's an explosion, when there's a mushroom cloud over Tel Aviv or over Jaffa, or what's it in Saudi Arabia? Is it Jaffa?
So JD Vance responded to Cassandra McDonald saying, no, I'm not saying that she lied or that she was wrong and that she was lying. First off, Tulsi's comment was in March, and a lot has changed since then. Second, if you look at what she said then, her point about uranium enrichment is consistent with what I wrote above, meaning we don't say making a bomb, but that there still could be enrichment. So that's where JD Vance is coming from on this whole deal. And Tulsi Gabbard basically helped clarify that today as well. DNI Tulsi Gabbard confirms she and President Trump are on the same page when it comes to Iran's nuclear timeline. Great news. President Trump was saying the same thing that I said in my annual threat assessment back in March. Unfortunately, too many people in the media don't care to actually read what I said, Tulsi said to CNN. Do we have an actual, I'd like to see that quote. Here's Tulsi Poll's statement on an ODNI threat assessment regarding Iran. Read it for yourself. Beware of media spin. So what she said was, we've got this part. In the past year, we have seen an erosion of decades-long taboo in Iran on discussing nuclear weapons in public, likely emboldening nuclear weapons advocates within Iran's decision-making apparatus. Iran's enriched uranium stockpile is at its highest levels and is unprecedented for a state without nuclear weapons. So they have more enriched uranium than anyone who doesn't have a bomb. Iran continues to seek expansion of its influence in the Middle East despite the degradation to its proxies and defenses during the Gaza conflict. Iran has developed and maintains ballistic missiles, cruise missiles, UAVs, including systems capable of striking U.S. targets and allies in the region. Tehran has shown a willingness to use these weapons, including during the 2020 attack on U.S. forces in Iraq and in attacks against Israel in April and October 2024. Iran's cyber operations and capabilities also present a serious threat to U.S. networks and data. So when you read this, you get a better feel for why it is, for what the official story is, whether you can choose to accept it or not. I'm not saying, I can understand, given the history of what we've seen, I can understand why people would be sus about it. But that being said, that's the official story as to why it is that we would be going in there and attacking them. Philip Coggins saying E equals MC squared is direct result of the theory of relativity. Okay, so call me an idiot and feel free to do so. I'm sure this is obvious to anyone who's taken 5th grade science. But explain to me why E equals MC squared is a necessary component of a nuclear bomb. Can you answer that to me?
What is a necessary component of a nuclear bomb?
The theory of E equals MC squared.
I'm not a physicist. I just think it's energy equals mass times whatever squared.
I'm not saying that if you split an atom, there's not going to be a great deal of power. I'm sure there's a great deal of power. We've seen the evidence in Hiroshima. I'm simply saying, as far as this formula itself being sound,
all right.
I'm not going to get into it now. Philip and I have argued about this, where I'm just waiting. I'm waiting for someone who has more scientific gravitas than I have to basically completely display and debunk.
All I know is I saw that mathematician brainiac guy, the black guy. I can't think of his name right now. He's also an actor, and he was saying how that 1 + 1 actually equals 3, and so none of this stuff makes any sense. So I don't know.
Right.
I think his name. I can't think of his name.
I don't think enriched uranium is anything like enriched flour. And I know that's not the full clip of Tulsi. They shared the part they wanted to share, and that's why Nick Sorter shared the entire context, which gives you a better feel for the fact that
Terrence Howard,
they really can be a threat. They really can be a danger, even to some of our assets in the region. Even put Israel out completely, but that they can be a danger to our bases and other areas of operation in the region.
Here's a thing that, since we're talking about this and the Iran stuff, do you think it's odd that Israel was able to attack Iran with all these drones inside Israel in the same exact way that Ukraine was able to attack Russia using the same exact methods, and they've both been planning it for a year? Like, that's odd, right? That's like a big coinky-dink.
So you think that Israel helped Ukraine attack Russia, or you think Ukraine helped Israel attack the
I personally think someone else was involved in both.
You think America was behind both of them?
I do.
That's an interesting theory. I'll tell you, I hadn't put those two events together. I think it's a reasonable question to ask. What do you guys in the audience think? Do you guys think I wouldn't be surprised. Look, if it works, it works. So why wouldn't you use it? Right? I wouldn't be surprised.
But the point is that they were like, it's odd that they both within a week or 2 weeks of each other, both of these attacks happened, and they were both had to have been planned for well over 6 months to a year.
True. The timing of it is
like,
interesting.
I mean, it's quite possible though that Israel knew they had to go because when the stuff happened with Russia and Ukraine, basically that let everyone know that this is possible, and so people were going to be on the lookout, and so you had a choice, either basically shit or get off the pot.
When the nuclear reaction happens, the mass loss is converted into energy. It doesn't have to be that level of energy, though. It could be a different level of energy beyond MC squared. That's what gives. So you're saying that's what gives the bomb its destructive power. I get that. But what I'm saying is, it doesn't have to be that. We know exactly what the energy output is. I don't know. What I wanted to get into is an article from the New York Post, which is discussing why it is, because you might say to yourself, look, Israel, assuming that we want to get rid of Trump or some combination thereof. Maybe some people in my audience do, some people in my audience definitely do not. But
I think it's pretty much the entire Western world doesn't want Iran to have nuclear weapons, and would be happy if they could just
some people would be happy to say, let's snap our fingers and have it be gone. Okay, in the Western world. No more nukes for Iran. That would make people a lot happier. Okay, fine. That being the case, a lot of people may be saying, well, Israel is doing such an effective job on Iran so far. Why don't they give them the ball and let them take it home? Why don't they just blow up whatever nuclear facilities they have there and leave America out of it? And that seems to be a reasonable take, except as far as they probably don't have the capacity to do it. So
that's the bottom line, is what they need to get it done. There's only one country that can do it,
which is Iran's last nuclear facility. Here's why Israel can't deliver it. So Israel needs a 15-ton bunker buster bomb to destroy the last untouched nuclear facility in Iran, but only the U.S. has one. Such a powerful weapon, the largest non-nuclear bomb in the U.S. arsenal, is needed because the target, Fordo Fuel Enrichment Plant, is built some 300 feet inside a mountain near the city of Qom, 2 hours south of Tehran. The heavyweight explosive is known as the GBU-57AB Massive Ordnance Penetrator and was designed by Boeing for the United States Air Force. Its huge weight means it can only be delivered with a B-2 Spirit stealth bomber, a jet Israel's Air Force does not possess. And how the bunker buster works. I love this diagram.
Have you ever seen, there's a documentary that shows this was developed during the Gulf War.
Really?
Yeah, like within 2 weeks, they were like, we need to get these bunkers, we need to figure it out. And these guys basically came up with the idea. They used old tank barrels, like barrels from tanks, on the outside to put the bomb so that it would penetrate through it's an amazing thing to figure out. They did it in 2 weeks. They came up with the idea and built them.
Really?
Yeah.
That's remarkable. 2 weeks?
2 weeks, yeah.
Wow. So here's how the bunker buster works. So it's got two charges in it. It's got the bomber pilot uses a guidance system to lock the bomb onto the target, then exits the area as the bomb travels to its objective. The first charge detonates, clearing a path for the second charge, and it goes through the concrete. And then the second charge enters the target following the opening created by the first charge and explodes. So there you go, in case you were wondering. So this is a very heavy bomb, which apparently no other jet could carry short of this B-2 bomber, which only America has.
I think they could probably launch them from a B-52 maybe is big enough to carry it. But the problem would be that you wouldn't want to send a B-52 over there because it's going to get shot down.
Right. And that's the question I guess people would ask. So first of all, this would have to be a manned flight, right?
Right.
This
Oh,
is-
yeah.
This is not a drone strike. So to be fair, you can't compare this to a drone strike on Soleimani because the drone strike is something that there's no American in Iran who's responsible for the bomb there. That's something that, you're basically playing effectively a video game, which ends up in the guy getting killed. But over here, you would need a pilot and presumably an American pilot to fly over Iran skies and drop the bomb there. I am curious to see if that report came out, because by now, if in fact that report I heard was correct, the bomb should have hit by now. So let me do a quick search here to see if U.S. I doubt it's happened. No one's been screaming about it.
I haven't seen anything about anything come across.
So it doesn't look like that bomb has hit. We're still watching for it. If it happens, you'll hear about it here first. If you can keep your eye open for that. So continue with this article here as to why it is that America would have to fly it. The United States controls the bomber and the bomb. John Spencer, chair of the Urban Warfare Studies of the Modern War Institute, West Palm Military Academy, told the Post, quote, "It would be an American plane and an American munition. The missile costs over $500 million for the U.S. Army to develop and was built to specifications which would allow it to penetrate deep enough into the Fordo plant to destroy the nuclear centrifuges in the complex," according to a 2013 article in the Wall Street Journal, which said at the time 20 of the bombs had been manufactured for the U.S. military. If the U.S. does opt to help Israel with this extraordinarily powerful weapon, it will almost certainly turn the nuclear facility, protected by layers of granite and steel, to rubble. And there you see pictures of the bomb, which that thing is massive. By weight and kinetic force, the GBU-57AB massive ordnance penetrator is designed to penetrate a certain amount of distance into the ground before it blows, said Spencer. That's why these bunker busters are called penetrators. They penetrate the ground before they explode. The explosion is strategically delayed. Although the U.S. has sold less powerful bunker buster weapons to Israel, they have declined to share the massive ordnance penetrator with any of its allies, partly to ensure it retains an upper hand, according to various reports. As to what an explosion from a massive ordnance penetrator would feel like, Spencer can only guess. I've seen 500-pounders, and they'll shake your teeth when they go off. It's like an earthquake. This will be much more than that. There you go. However, minimizing the likelihood of nuclear explosion or leak, said Spencer, this explosion is pretty contained. He explained that since the bunker buster explodes so far on the ground under such strong armor, it's unlikely to cause a nuclear reaction. Instead of breaking through the surface, rubble would cave in. The risk for leakage is for leakage, not an explosion. U.S. intelligence has long agreed Fordo is strategic to disabling the Iranian nuclear program. If you don't get Fordo, you haven't eliminated their ability to produce weapons-grade material. Brett McGurk, who served as Middle East coordinator for several American presidents of both parties, recently told the Times. In a less-than-ideal scenario, the state-of-the-art bunker buster is not the only solution. It's also possible, said Spencer, that without help from the U.S., Israel could do a jerry-rigged attack on Fordo. Quote, Israel has cornered the market on what they call drilling, said Spencer. They drop one bomb that reaches a certain depth, then another and another at different angles within seconds to get to where they want to go. But you put multiple people and multiple aircraft at risk. The GBU is one and done. Considering that option, Spencer concluded, there are many ways to destroy the nuclear program in Iran, but this is the effective and efficient one. It gets to the objective quicker and is the perfect solution. So there you go. So there are ways that Israel could, in theory, do it, obviously with far greater risks to their soldiers. But the success of such a mission would obviously not be quite as blanket.
What would people be more upset with? The U.S. giving Israel a B-2 stealth bomber, or us going and dropping a bomb to get rid of this facility?
I think they'd be much more upset with us giving them a bomber.
I would be more upset with us giving them a stealth
bomber.
bomber.
Yeah, I'm not sure about the notion of giving them a bomber. That sounds a little bit much. Dropout Crew says even if they develop a a big bada boom. What I don't hear is Iranian rhetoric against the U.S. Quite the opposite. It seems the threats are coming from others. I'm not sure who you're saying is threatening, but Iran refers to America as, I mean, there are multiple incidents of them referring to America as the Great Satan. That's not really a crazed take. That's not like an out there like thing. But if you want, I can try and find examples of that. John Mosley says Mark Wayne Mullins said on the news today Tulsi was making statement was info from Biden administration. When Trump administration looked into CC, they found different intel. Oh, interesting. So in other words, what she was saying on March 27th was somewhat uninformed. And even the uninformed was still saying they could be in jeopardy. They could be causing a problem sometime. So, yeah.
I mean, the amount of money that the Obama administration and the Biden administration gave over to Iran.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm shocked they weren't able to buy a bomb from Pakistan or, someone, at least, or,
You think Pakistan has a bomb?
Pakistan has multiple bombs.
Oh, yeah?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Them and India both.
I suppose they haven't tried taking it over and taking their bombs. I don't look at Pakistan.
There was
Pakistan
some talks about when that whole thing. That's why what was his name? The short guy. I can't think of his name now. There was a coup during the Bush administration, if you remember.
Joe Pesci.
He kind of looked like Joe Pesci, but he was like a little dude, and he ended up going to prison. And now there's been all types of stuff. What's his name? That there was a military coup because
Anthony Scaramucci.
They were worried about they were worried about the guy about something happening to their nukes.
I'm just listing off. I'm just short, angry people. So that's that's all I was doing. I'm not sure who it is you're referring to, though. To be honest,
he was a Pakistani general, and he was like the head of their spy agency.
So, did you see? I think for now we'll put a pause on the whole Iran thing, right? Yeah. Definitely we'll keep monitoring it in case we do end up dropping a bomb on them. Like I said, this was supposed to happen. I was told this was going to happen earlier this evening, like an hour ago or so is when it was supposed to launch, and we should have seen the impact like a half hour ago. So that didn't seem to pan out. But we're still on bomb watch here. We're still on, like waiting for election results. We're still on bomb watch. But at least I'm curious what you guys think. Do you guys think that it makes sense to just bomb it and get it over with? Maybe I should put a poll up. Do you think a poll would be a good idea? I think a poll would be a good idea. Let me see if I can drum up a poll here. Hold on a second.
The guy's name was Musharraf.
Musharraf.
Yeah, it was in 1999. The guys didn't go over.
Engage in my audience. I have no idea which way it's going to be 25-75, which way it's going to go. I have no idea. We'll see. Question is, do you think we should drop the bunker buster and end Iran's nuclear power threat? Do you think I'm going to say America, so I'm crystal clear here.
There's also rumors too, like there's somebody talking about in the chat about that Russia supposedly is stepping away from Iran, and so maybe that's part of the calculus with Trump, is if he's talking to Putin and Putin's saying, go ahead, take it out. Or who knows? This stuff could all be interconnected.
I was explaining this last night. I'm of the firm belief that Putin doesn't give the slightest darn about any Middle Eastern nation. He looks at them as proxies that he could use, much as his predecessors did. looked at them as look at all of these Muslim states as proxies they can use to sort of be a thorn in America's side. That's the role. That's the name. In the United Nations, you always see Russia and the Arab nations all standing together in their condemnation of Israel. But that was really just political statement to try and basically say we hate America. So that's why Russia was doing that. They figure let's just. I don't even think that Russia really hates Israel. I think that they just hate Israel because of its allyship with America. Because it's not like, Israel and Russia have a long history of aggression toward each other, fortunately. But so that's why I think I don't see their heart being into we have to protect Iran, other than making a political statement. But as far as actually backing up with force, when they have other more pressing matters on their minds, like Kiev, I don't think that they're really fixated right now. I think they're far more fixated on Kiev than they are on Tehran.
I put a couple of links in the private chat that are about, it's up to you. If you don't have to pull them up if you don't want. They're about the possible ties between what happened with Israel going into Iran and what happened with Ukraine and Russia.
What I mean is the only ones I hear talking about U.S. interests being threatened right now is the aggressors. Iran doesn't want us involved. Of course, they don't want us involved. Of course, they don't want us involved. The extent that there is involvement, but I mean, Trump is the one. Trump is the one. Look, Trump is the one who's making statements and has been making statements over and over again that Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. I can play a clip for you from. He did a 12-minute thing today, which I saw on C-SPAN, where he was like, "Look, they can't have a bomb," and I've always said that, and I'm still saying that they can't have a freaking bomb. It's not okay. It's a 12-minute thing here where he goes off on that.
If your clients are only investing in public markets, they could be missing out on a world of opportunity.
C-SPAN.
Maybe it's time for a bigger pond.
I'll check those links out.
From the G7 summit in Canada, he spoke about the Israel-Iran conflict, trade deals with the European Union and United Kingdom, and his signature tax and spending.
You just posted right before we took off that you're not leaving because of a ceasefire. Why are you? Can you elaborate?
Look at it better than ceasefire. We're not looking for a ceasefire. I didn't say I was looking for a ceasefire. That was Emmanuel, nice guy, but he doesn't get it right too often. But we're not looking. We're looking for better than a ceasefire.
That's just what you're looking to get into this more. You're not going to involve the U.S. in this conflict. At this stage, you're going to do anything more for Israel right now?
Do pretty well right now.
No, I'm not getting my closed captions here.
Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. It's very simple. You don't have to go too deep into it. They just can't have a nuclear weapon.
What was his thinking on this?
So that's his take. They can't have one, and that's consistent with what he's been saying all along.
For Tehran to evacuate, is there a threat or is there incoming? What was the thinking on the full evacuation?
I want people to be safe. And that's always possible. A thing like that could happen. I just want people to be safe.
Is there any new concern about U.S. troops or assets in the region at all today?
You have great people that know how to protect themselves.
And when you say better, what's
we'll come down so hard if they do anything to our people. We'll come down so hard, then the gloves are off so beautifully. Now, I think they know not to touch our troops.
Are you sending the vice?
We're not troops.
I think they know not to touch our troops. This is a leader. He's a leader. You can disagree with what his strategy is or his perspective on this, but he definitely has a perspective and a direction as to how to take care of it, how to get where he wants to go. Yeah, I think he's like, I think they know not to touch our troops. I think they know that. So I thought that was interesting. These links you shared with me. These, I assume, these are related to Iran.
It's about the drone attacks and how they look like they're either U.S. is involved or, like I said, it's not.
Zelensky's fetching that his bombs went to Israel. Is that what's happening?
Well, it's just saying that Zelensky's anti-drone missiles claim fuels speculation U.S. role in Israel attack on Iran. So it's just fuels speculation that we were involved in both attacks, basically.
The redirection has raised questions about U.S. role played in unprovoked attack on Iran by Israel. Well, you can
Like,
say,
how did we know to send the stuff, the anti-drone stuff, our anti-drone stuff to the Middle East before this happened if we weren't involved?
Oh, I think there's no question that America was aware as to where Israel was going on this. I think there's no question at all that they're very well aware as to like what Israel was going to be up to here. I think that it's very naive to assume that Bibi would have done this without giving Trump a heads up that he planned on going to Iran. So that I think, and I saw there's a similar thing from the New York Times. So yeah, I don't think that's like, I don't think that's earth-shattering news. I think it would be surprised. It would be far more earth-shattering if, in fact, Bibi hadn't spoken to Trump about this. So, and then there's this also. Everything Zelensky says is a total lie. So, yeah. Anyhow, I think
that's the problem is you don't know what to believe anymore. You don't know, you know what I mean? It's basically if the government's telling you something, your first thing should be like, why should I believe you?
If they want the U.S. involved, let them develop one. If they're going to. The moment they launch, the entire world is fully against them. See, I don't know if that's actually true.
Isn't that too late then at that point?
I don't know if that's actually true. There's definitely, look, I can't deny that there's a risk that you're going to hear political backlash from the EU and BRICS nations. But I mean, as far as being against them, especially if it's simply a strike on that one target, I don't know that that's I don't know. I think that's my point being that Iran isn't going to hit U.S. assets because we jump into things. America first for right now. Don't jump in and make them a threat. I get that. I get that. I think that's a reasonable take. I think it probably makes sense to say, you know what, maybe I'll be a little slower, but let Israel do it. Let Israel do it. Let Israel clean up themselves. They're ready to have their feet messed up. Let Israel do it.
Iran has a history of being a habitual line stepper. I mean,
a habitual. He's like a habitual line stepper. It's not. He's like so. He just steps. He has to step across that line. He has to step across that line.
I mean, all I would have to do is tell anybody to just Google Operation Praying Mantis.
Right.
And that'll explain Iran's history and that they will do something to us. If we don't, you have to push them back every once in a while.
No, I think what Drop Barracuda is getting at here is I'd really love to see Israel do this. I just don't want America involved in it. So let them, their hands are already dirty. Let them be the only ones with dirty hands here. And sure, maybe behind the scenes we'll help give them weapons. Not that particular weapon, the bunker buster, but yeah, we'll also help supply them with weapons. And the whole world, we know, is the whole Western world is going to applaud Israel behind closed doors for what they do while coming out and saying, shame on you, you bad people, you bad people. But that as far as having America overtly involve itself and insert itself into this is asking for political backlash. And that, the America First position is why bring that on? Why bring that on? Let Israel do it. And I can understand that. It makes sense. It makes sense. I don't think there's anything. I think the question is whether Israel will actually succeed in getting it done. They certainly seem motivated. To get it done. So during the first Gulf War, we called these bombs Moab, mother of all bombs. Yeah. I would imagine so. It's a bomb that works its way 300 feet underground before just completely blowing the top off the mountain. I mean, that's pretty freaky. It's pretty freaky. Just that's pretty freaky. But Coffee First says, Joe, Loomer just posted Tucker Carlson Farah filing after he did interview in Qatar. What? See, and this is what's happening is so many people are going off the deep end against Trump about this. Off the deep end, where they're just like, it's like, just let the man cook. Just give him the confidence. It kind of bugs me because I'm
It's
like,
in the private chat.
Give me the confidence that you actually, display confidence that this is a guy who knows what he's talking about. And they just don't want to. They're just like, they're so they're so afraid of where he's going to go. Here's the screenshot from the FARA documents filled out this year that proved Qatar paid hundreds of thousands of dollars for an interview between Tucker Carlson and the Prime Minister of Qatar, the same Qatar which funds Hamas regarding the war with Iran. This was a paid propaganda piece in which over $200,000 was paid by the embassy of the state of Qatar for Tucker to interview a Qatari official, all while knowing Hamas is an Iranian proxy and funded by Qatar. Qatar funds Islamic terror all around the world, and they think that they can just pay everyone off to make them turn a blind eye. The Qataris are global funders of Islamic terrorism. The money has been used to murder American citizens. These are not good people. Tucker Carlson wants to think his thoughts on Iran are based on and original, but he's literally participating in paid-for interviews by the Qataris who are funding and providing penthouses and luxury lifestyles to leaders of Hamas in Doha. Tucker should just be honest that he's a mouthpiece for genocidal Muslims. His media company was literally funded by a Muslim investor who is half Pakistani and half Iranian, who spends a lot of time in Qatar. And trust me when I say, a lot of people in pro-Trump circles are very uncomfortable with this. Tucker is controlled by Muslims. People need to wake up and stop pretending like this is a conspiracy theory. Qatar and Iran are buying off conservative podcasters to push pro-Islamist, anti-American, and anti-Israel talking points to undermine President Trump. Wow, this is why it's so hard to just know anything about who we can trust. And here is the alleged foreign principal.
I dropped another link in the
Tucker Carlson show. Date was 2/26/25. Method in person interview with Prime Minister of Qatar regarding war with Iran. Prime Minister of Qatar is being attacked in the media for wanting to stop it. And that was filed on April 30th of this year.
I dropped another clip in there. It's a 1.5 minute video clip of Ted Cruz talking to Tucker Carlson about Iran.
Okay.
How many people live in Iran, by the way? I don't know the population. At all? No, I don't know the population. You don't know the population of the country you seek to topple?
I don't see why that's relevant. Why does it matter if it's 5 million or 200 million? Like, why does that matter?
I think there's 10 million people that live in Tehran and the outskirts of Tehran, if I'm not mistaken.
I mean, the answer to this question, I happened to stumble on this clip like right before the show. The answer to the question here is 92 million. But my question is, I don't know why that matters. Like, why would it matter if there was only 5 million people there, or why would it matter if there's 200 million? Like, I don't know what the difference. I don't know what that does. Like, what? It comes across like it's a gotcha about a matter that I personally don't understand the relevance. Do you guys understand the relevance of
well, he was because he wanted Ted Cruz to guess and then guess wrong, and then he could say, well, you don't even know or something, and Ted just said, I don't know. And so he's just being honest. I don't know the exact number, and I'm not going to guess.
Right. So
how many people live in Iran? 92 million. Okay. Yeah. How could you not know that? I don't sit around memorizing population tables. Well, it's kind of relevant because you're calling for the overthrow of the government. Why is it relevant whether it's 90 million or 80 million or 100 million? Why is that relevant? Because if you don't know anything about the country... I didn't say I don't know anything about what's the ethnic mix of Iran? They are Persians and predominantly Shia. Okay, it's not even... You don't know anything about Iran. So okay, I am not the Tucker Carlson expert on Iran. You're a senator who's calling for the overthrow of the government. You're the one who claims, don't know anything about the country. No, you don't know anything about the country. You're the one who claims they're not trying to murder Donald Trump. You're the one who can't figure out if it was a good idea to kill General Soleimani, and you said it was bad. They're trying to murder.
He's throwing back at him. He's throwing back at it. Ted Cruz doesn't play around.
Or Trump?
Yes, I do.
Because you're not calling for military strikes against them in retaliation. And if you really
we
believe
are
that,
carrying out military strikes today.
You said Israel was.
Right, with our help. I said we. Israel is leading them, but we're supporting them.
Well, you're breaking news here because the U.S. government last night denied, the National Security Council spokesman Alex Pfeiffer denied on behalf of Trump that we were acting on Israel's behalf in any offensive capacity.
No, we're not bombing them. Israel's bombing them.
You just said we were.
We are supporting
this is
Israel.
High stakes. You're a senator. If you're saying the United States government is at war with Iran right now, people are listening.
Okay.
That's not what he said, though. What he said was, let's hear it again. What he said.
You're not calling for military strikes against them in retaliation. And if you really believe that,
carrying out military strikes today.
You said Israel was.
Right, with our help. I said we. Israel is leading them, but we're supporting them.
Well, you're breaking news here because the U.S.
So Israel's leading them, and we're supporting them. How do you take that, Jim? Oops.
Yeah,
go ahead.
It kind of sounds like he said something he wasn't supposed to say.
Okay.
And then he kind of.
I think that's a reason. I think that's a reasonable read. You can read that into what he said, or you could read it that he's like basically saying there are mercenaries. Because that's when he said it. That's how I took it. Like there are mercenaries. We're basically funding this whole operation and giving them, the wherewithal to do it, and they're doing it. So, yeah.
I mean, like the strikes that Ukraine took deep inside Russia. There's been all types of speculation that there's no way they could have did that without American help. Like satellites and the communications and the different things that would have had to have been our stuff that were made them capable to do that. So I would say it's the same possibility that the strikes that Israel did in.
Well, I'll ask you this: do you think that there are American troops who were involved in Israel's invasion into Iran?
What do you mean by involved?
Okay, do you think
talking to them, giving them information, I don't think they're there.
Right, that's my question. Do you think that they're actually American troops who are in harm's way because of this? Right this moment, that there are American troops who have been deployed in some fashion or another who are currently in harm's way because of the Israeli-Iranian conflict?
The way you said that, the answer is yes. We have troops in Jordan. We have troops in Kuwait. We have troops in Oman. We have troops all over the place that are in danger.
Right. But I'm saying that they're involved. To the extent...
We don't have any...
Do you think they're flying missions? Do you think they're flying missions?
We don't have anybody doing kinetic work on Iran.
As far as I
know.
That's a better way of terming it. I'm glad you made that. I'm glad you made that distinction. Yeah, so I can't believe that they are in any way. I'd be very angry if I heard that there were American troops who were actually flying missions, in either American or Israeli planes. That we have.
Well, no, I mean, if there was Americans flying planes, dropping bombs, putting bombs on targets, we should know that.
Yeah,
it shouldn't be a secret.
Yeah,
it should be like the president should be saying, right now there's planes dropping bombs on Iran, and I ordered it. It's not supposed to be secrets.
So what do you think is being broken here in this interview that is a change from what you thought the case?
I thought maybe it almost to me sounded like Ted Cruz was letting the cat out of the bag, like that we are going to be striking them later today.
Oh,
not that we were, but that we're going to be hitting them later.
Mm-hmm.
Like something that he learned in a classified briefing or was told and he wasn't supposed to say anything about it. And then he tried to walk it back. That's almost what it sounded like. I'm hoping that it's not, that it was just him, we're doing, just like all the people who say we're defeating Russia because Ukraine's doing all this stuff. And when are we defeating Russia?
Well, my take on this the entire time has been this: let Israel do whatever Israel's going to do. And it's the same as it was. I think if they want to bomb and they want to buy stuff from us, I think we should sell to them. But I think that what they're going to do, they're going to do. But I certainly don't want to see our money or troops being invested in this. And that's what I've been saying since day one, and that's what I expect to be saying going forward.
So you would not be in favor if the U.S. could take out this nuclear facility.
I don't like it.
Without any loss of life, American life, no risk of losing a plane because Israel's already taken out all the air defenses, that we just fly a B-2 in and drop a bunker buster and take this facility out and then leave, and that's the end of it.
You tell me that you can guarantee me that there's zero risk of American soldiers.
I'm just saying, I don't know. I mean, that would be the story they would tell Trump, that they're, convince him to say, like, we could do this. It's no one's going to get hurt. They have no air defenses. Our B-2 is going to zip in. It's going to drop the bomb. It's going to leave.
The way you're painting it, that would obviously bother me a lot less than what people have been envisioning. But I still think let Israel do it. Let Israel do it. Let them do it. Like they'll be fine. Let them do it. They're very smart. Let them do it. I don't. It's like I'm leaning towards what Drop Barracuda was saying. I've really been thinking a lot about this. Curious. I haven't even looked at my poll. Let me see. Now that I've been weighing in here.
It's also possible too that they've been waiting and hoping Iran would do something, like something stupid, like shoot at one of our ships or do something to give them an excuse to say, okay, now we're going to attack you, and they haven't taken the bait.
That is. I'll tell you right now, 64%. The poll comes in 64, 30, 60. I said, do you think America should drop the bunker buster and end Iran's nuclear power threat? 64% say yes, and 36% saying no, with roughly 300 votes coming in. So nearly 2/3, 1/3 people saying yes. I'm leaning towards saying let Israel do it. I wouldn't be outraged by it, but I'm definitely leaning. I'm like, what I'm saying is, if it was my call, I'd be like, I think you guys got this. I think you got it.
I don't think the U.S. should get involved in any type of regime change in Iran. Like we should.
Oh my God, definitely not. Definitely
do
not.
anything like that.
No. Every time we try that since the 40s, we've been trying to do a regime change in Iran since the 40s.
This would be the third. This would make it the third time we've done it in Iran.
It's a complete and total fail. Every time it's someone worse.
People don't realize that we installed the Shah, and then we uninstalled the Shah. The U.S. is why the Ayatollah is running Iran. That was us. That was the U.S. government, because they were pissed at the British government, because they were pissed because the Shah was going to charge us more money for oil. And so they're like, yeah, let's get these other people in there. They're going to.
Yeah.
So they organized the student protests.
Moabs exist so people wouldn't hate on nuke use, maybe. Just to be clear things up, Moab is an airburst bomb, not a bunker buster used in the Gulf War. Two completely different ordinance. Also, my tide was due. Well, welcome back, K-Vel. Welcome back indeed. Welcome back. Why are they singing in front of Reagan on fire? I don't think he's on fire. At least Tucker's consistent with his punchable face. Yeah, Tucker, I felt like he's trying so hard to get a gotcha on Ted Cruz there. But it's like, I think Ted Cruz sort of like stepped around in wet cement a little bit there. But I think Tucker there is trying very hard to get a gotcha where it's like, this is not breaking news. This is to me is not breaking news. But the reality is that Iran is much stronger than you're being told. They can hold their own. It's all propaganda. Well, I don't know. Everyone's saying that their whole air defense is shot. So you have to ask yourself, I don't know. Andrew Branco, whatever happened to the band A Flock of Seagulls? I ran so far away. So far away.
He didn't get away.
Did he? Yeah, they're there. Nice. See that? Jim Stala can hold his own with Andrew Branca. There you go. Good to see you, Andrew. Good to see you indeed.
He's been killing it lately. His videos on all this stuff.
He's awesome.
He's kind of seems like he's made a switch from the law of self-defense to the actual Andrew Branca show to just covering everything. And it's great stuff.
No, he does. I highly recommend everyone should sign up to Andrew Branca.
He's got the grift down great. He makes people pay him to have another show that day. He's like, pay me $200 and I'll have a show.
Nice.
$10 super chats and I'll have a show. And they do, and he has another show and it works out great.
Wow. There you go. I gotta learn from the master. Yep. Learn from the master. You gotta take your notes wherever you can. And he does great work. I'll secretly watch him sometime. I feel like a stalker or like a voyeur type of thing. It's like, because I know if I join the chat, It's like just becomes like distracting. So I'll just sort of like sit in the background sometimes and just do that thing. See, Andrew, he doesn't mind. He popped in.
Yeah, he's fast approaching 250,000 subs.
That's so awesome. That is so awesome. As he marches and marches towards 1 million. Make sure you guys sign up to Andrew Brinke. He's great. So, yes, I think that we've covered this topic now. I feel like this topic has been well covered. We spent an hour and 20 minutes going through potential bombing by the United States. I think that but you're saying they should drop the bunker buster just to put a cap on it. You think they should drop it?
I would.
You would.
But that's me. I don't like Iran. A lot of dead Marines because of Iran. That's all I'll say.
You know what they can do is they say, okay, you try it first, and if it fails, then we always have the bunker buster. You know, it's not like, you know, you see what you can do with it. You know, that's it's one way of doing it. But another show, I'm down. I should try that. I should start doing like I'm doing an hour-long show, and if I manage to get $20 $10 super chats, I'll do another show. It's genius. I have to start earlier if I'm going to do that, though. I have to start much earlier. All right. Can we talk about Senator Padilla?
Senator Padilla or the New York comptroller? Which one?
Maybe we'll. You know what? Maybe we'll start with the New York controller. Let's start with the New York controller.
I think there's a pattern emerging, and we're going to see much more of this. Trump's an authoritarian. Look at, we go and attack ICE agents. They're going to arrest us. This is just authoritarians.
It is pretty much the same story on opposite coasts. It is pretty much the same story. So let's talk. I agree with you. Let's get the New York City mayoral candidate out of the way first. So
I actually think Hochul might have stepped on it a little bit because she said she went and she got him released and had the charges dropped and stuff. Well, wouldn't that be illegal for a governor to go and interfere in a federal investigation and have charges dropped? Wouldn't that be a crime?
We're in New York, so we call her Hochul.
Hochul?
Yeah.
Her hackles in a bunch.
Here it is. All right. Should I go in order of how you sent them to me?
I would.
That's what you reckon. That
tells the story.
To me? It tells the story that way.
Tells the story that way.
All right, we're gonna see how well you did as far as putting this story together. Okay.
Terrible, probably.
All right. So, in case you're unaware of what's going on in the world, this first one looks like it's from the earliest part of the story. All right, this is New York City Controller and mayoral candidate Brad Lander. Just been arrested by federal agents for allegedly obstructing with the arrest of illegal migrants.
Guys, back up, guys, back up. I understand you're pregnant, but y'all need to back up. If you're interfering with this arrest, we're going to arrest. Back up, guys. Back up, guys.
See, all of these people touching the federal agents should be going to jail.
Please don't put him in the elevator and then.
This is worse than January 6th, in my opinion.
It's insurrection.
This is insurrection.
It is.
Please stay back. Take it back. Step back. Please step back, guys. Step back.
You don't have the authority to arrest U.S. citizens.
Yeah, and he's like, you have no authority to arrest a U.S. citizen. Yeah, they do.
If you're interfering, they do.
I'm not obstructing. I'm standing right here in the hallway. I have to see the judicial warrant.
Please step back. Step back, guys. You can take pictures, but please stay back.
This is like basically the Democrats' version of "Am I being detained?" You know, those sovereign citizen videos. That's what we're gonna get. We're gonna get Democrats sovereign citizen videos all summer long.
That'd be great.
Sorry, no way. I'm safe. Where are you taking him?
Jail.
Which him?
You have no authority to arrest U.S. citizens.
Where are you taking the controller?
And with what authority?
Why are you arresting the city controller and where are you taking him? No!
Number one is going to go with him, all right? Hang on, please, number one. Hold on. Brett, that's his number one right here, all right? Thank you.
All right, there you go. All right. Breaking Democrat New York Governor Kathy Hochul admits she had all charges dropped against Controller Brad Lander following his arrest today for assaulting ICE agents. That gives leftists a green light to attack ICE. I don't know. She has authority on that.
Yeah, she does, but he must be her.
If it's
choice.
federal charge, charge, why would she have authority over
I don't know. She went. I don't know, but I think that's interfering in an investigation. It's got to be obstruction of justice or something.
I hate this.
And that's when I got word of what had happened.
Key face. I hate everything about her.
My colleague in government, our controller, Brad Lander. The video is shocking. I knew I needed to come down here immediately and check on his whereabouts.
And basically tell everyone how important I am.
And do what I could to intervene. I'll let Brad speak about his experience. To my knowledge, the charges, there are no charges. Charges have been dropped. He walks out of there a free man.
They never should. Never should have dropped him.
No, well, he needs to be indicted just like them. Yeah, they need to be. He needs to be indicted. Take it to a grand jury and have him indicted, just like they did to McIver, whatever her name was, McIver.
Here's this clown.
And so I just engaged in that tradition of accompaniment, of trying to bear witness, of trying to walk peacefully with someone, of trying to make sure that the rules are followed.
Why do they all sound like this?
And so I just engaged in that tradition of accompaniment.
Is he gay? Is he a gay man?
I was saying Democrats.
Oh.
I was saying Democrats.
I took that the wrong
Why'd you
way.
Have to go that way? Why? Why would you go that way?
Like they
I said I was talking about
this.
Democrats. Why would you possibly do that?
I don't
Why
know.
would you do that? Why would you just try to drag this show into the gutter?
Sorry.
I was totally talking about Democrats.
That was Trump who said it anyway, see?
Yeah.
And are going to make sure that at least they get as much help as we can provide, as New York City, as New York State can provide to help them avoid being separated or being detained. But then when we went back upstairs, again, we had these next two cases, this Yoruba gentleman and then Edgardo, who we just tried to walk out of the building. And I think you saw the video. All I tried to do was just hold Edgardo's arm and ask the ICE agents, do you have a warrant?
No, that's not how it...
And they would not show me the warrant. And I said I'd let go of his arm as soon as they showed it to me, and they did not show it to me. And you saw.
So would that be extortion?
Make sure that at least they get
extorting them. Show me the thing, or I won't let them go, or kidnapping, or something.
Is he his lawyer? I mean, just because he's accompanying him, I don't know who he is.
He has no authority as the city comptroller to be interfering in.
I don't get it.
Immigration enforcement.
Yes, that's the proper term. A flaming Democrat. A flaming Democrat. Yeah. But he was released from ICE custody and came out as like some sort of type of hero today for this. So I think that's you can make a case here. I do think that this is I think he's looking for attention. If we look at this again.
Well, yeah, he's running for mayor, and it seems because of the way Hochul acted that he is her choice. They don't want the Islamist communist to be mayor that wants, I don't know if that happens. You guys,
Bernie Sanders came out endorsing one of his competitors in the New York City primary. You want to see what a lunatic this guy is? I had this put away for yesterday. It's not really on. It's only on point.
This guy's name is like Khomeini or something like that. Right?
Something like Zoran or something like that. I have it. You have to give me a second. You have to give me a second to pull this up because I actually saved this last week. I couldn't even believe it. This was just unbelievable. Give me a minute here. You guys can talk amongst yourselves. Feel free to talk amongst yourselves. It'll be harder for you, I think, but here it is. Government supermarkets. I couldn't even believe it when I saw this. Zoran Mamdani. That's what it is. Zoran Mamdani has announced he wants to...
So he's like the Zohan? He's like he's going to do the Zohan thing? Like
He wants to implement government-owned supermarkets. This is something that there's nothing in any constitution which allows for there to be government-owned supermarkets, because this is literally communism. It is literally communism. Listen to this jackass.
Grocery prices are out of control. The cost of eggs and milk has skyrocketed. Some stores are even using dynamic pricing, jacking up the cost over the course of a day, depending on what they can get away with.
Which is totally ridiculous and not true. But let's just pretend that's happened. That's a real thing.
It doesn't need to be this way. I'm Zoran Mamdani, and as mayor, I will create a network of city-owned grocery stores.
City-owned grocery stores.
For produce. We will redirect city funds from corporate supermarkets to city-owned grocery stores.
What city funds are going to corporate supermarkets? I don't even know what they're talking about. I don't even know what he's talking about.
Well, he thinks any money that's in the city is city funds. So he's just saying that your funds, because basically no one will have money. You'll just go and get the food in the line.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Lines. We'll make sure that everyone's broke. So, so by taking everyone's money.
The reason New York bodegas have high prices is because the rent for the bodega is high for the location, because it's location real estate. They have it there.
Yeah. And I can attest to the fact that food prices in New York City are outrageous. I mean, it's crazy. Everything there just is insanely high priced.
Yeah, I heard the 99-cent pizza went up to $1.50.
It's I don't remember the last time I bought pizza for $1.50, but it's a long time since. But I only get kosher pizza. But yeah, even everything, you go into any of these supermarkets that they have there, which they don't really have supermarkets in New York City. If you've never been to New York City, have you ever been there, Jim?
Just briefly, but I know they have little bodegas. They're like little delicatessens all over.
Yeah, you're not going to find a ShopRite or Piggly Wiggly in New York City. There's nothing like that. They're all basically, people will buy at CVS or some drugstore. They'll have food there. They have these different bodega type things. There's no supermarket to walk into in New York City, because I think the real estate is too expensive for a supermarket to actually be able to survive, because supermarkets work on such small margins. So all you have are these bodegas and things of that nature, and then you have your frozen section of you can't get produce in the city. You can't. I don't know where anyone goes to get produce in the city. I sit there and when I go into the city for downtown New York, and I want to get a grapefruit, I don't even know where I would begin to go.
They don't have the vendors on the street anymore with the carts that sell the fruit. Like that.
They do have vendors. They do have the
Corleone went and got the fruit and then got
not fruit vendors though. Oh. They'll have people selling hot dogs and roasted nuts and things of that nature. But you're not gonna. There's no Vito Corleone oranges.
You know what I'm talking about? We went to get the oranges and all that stuff, and the fruit we got shot.
Yeah. Someone actually, if you're a Godfather fan, there's no. They might have Trader Joe's. I haven't seen a Trader Joe's. I don't remember seeing a Trader Joe's. Not in Manhattan. You'll see it. You'll see in other places, in Queens and in the Bronx and in Brooklyn. You can find these supermarkets. I'm talking in anywhere south of Midtown. You don't see anything like that. You don't see actual supermarkets anywhere. So I don't even know what he's talking about here. And government-owned supermarkets just sounds like this was an idea that Stalin would just have loved.
Whose mission is lower prices, not price gouging. These stores will operate without a profit motive or having to pay property taxes or rent, and will pass on those.
Wow! Wait! How will they not have to pay rent or property taxes? Where do they get them? They're just going to confiscate people's buildings?
I don't know. I mean, how deep in debt is New York City? They're going to start acquiring these properties. I have no idea. I don't know what the hell he's talking about.
Grocery prices are out of.
So that's what this guy is advocating. Basically, let's make sure that we get Lenin in here, and we're just going to have All of your food is going to be supplied by the government. Don't worry about the bread lines. Don't. This is so terrible. So terrible. I saw this and I was like, this is just astonishingly bad. And who is endorsing him? Mr. Captain Russia himself, Bernie Sanders, who said, hey, bread lines are a good thing. They're a good thing. So
some people are getting the food.
Yeah. Yeah, the guy who literally honeymooned in Russia and has been extolling the virtues of communism ever since. So he came out and publicly endorsed Mamdani. And so help me, if this guy wins, I feel so bad for New York. I feel so bad for New York. Ah, what an utter disaster. So that guy's running against Brad Landers. It's sad to say that we have to root for Brad Landers. Like, if you're anywhere associated with New York, you have to root for Brad Landers to somehow pull this thing out. I guess there are probably other people. It is the Padilla Show Part 2. Make a spectacle and fundraise. Yep. Keep on beanbagging them in the beanbag. Exactly. Can we talk about Padilla? Because I've been longing to watch this. Yeah. I've been longing to watch this. But Felix de la Cruz says 18 USC 1501 and possibly 18 USC 111. That biatch doesn't have any authority to drop charges, but the AUSAs have always been wimps about charging people with those charges. That's true. And that's why she didn't say that he's been pardoned. She said, I got the charges dropped.
Not to mention, too, Joe, though, if they open up a city-owned grocery stores, all the people that were employed at the grocery store would have to get paid union wages.
It would be everything about it,
benefits and everything, and then
nobody.
Without a profit margin, the food would still cost more than a guy could sell it for at a bodega that he's paying minimum, because it wouldn't be no minimum wage. People would be getting paid, in New York, probably $200,000 a year to stock shelves at the grocery store because it's a living wage and all.
The very people who are continually complaining that the government can't do anything right, can't deliver mail, can't run a school, want to start pushing government into new branches that they know nothing about running, nothing about doing, and basically sucking up more of their taxes, their tax dollars, so that they can try and take those industries over. It's astonishingly stupid. It's so utterly mindless that it's boggling that people who consider themselves erudite have the audacity to try and say with a straight face that this is possibly not a completely disastrous thing. And the only people who actually think it through, only people with a brain who think it through and are supporting it are folks who are the elitist class who think they're going to get rich by it. So there you go.
I mean, it's not constitutional though, right? I mean, that would be a violation of the Constitution for the government to get into business, right?
I mean, you're talking about New York State Constitution, right?
No, I'm talking about the U.S. Constitution.
Well, it would be a state-owned thing. I mean, there's nothing in the U.S. Constitution which says that government can't be in business. It would have to have license to do that under the New York State Constitution. That's really the question. There's nothing in the United States Constitution which prohibits a state from becoming an enterprising entity. Back then, when we actually had real federalism, folks were like, we're going to let states do whatever, states run themselves, however they want to run themselves. So the question really is this consistent with?
Wouldn't that be no? You know what it would be? It would be a violation of the Dormant Commerce Clause because they're infringing on other people's businesses.
I don't think you're using the Commerce Clause the way that I tend to think of the Commerce Clause.
No, I'm talking about the Dormant Commerce Clause.
No, I understand what the Dormant Commerce Clause is, but I think you're reaching here. I think you might want to grok up on Dormant Commerce Clause and then see if you really want to take the position that you seem to be taking.
I don't know.
I'm just saying, I don't think there's anything in the United States Constitution which prohibits the state from doing this, because back then, we have to think about it. When the Constitution was drafted, then they wanted to give a lot of freedom to states to do whatever they want to do. So the only thing that they were dictating is limitations on the federal government. So there's nothing in the U.S. Constitution. The question is whether there's anything in the New York State Constitution. And what I would say is that what is likely there is that there's nothing in the U.S. Constitution which gives congressional leaders or the mayor, to license to actually start taking on these new duties. Like, where are you having the authority to do this? And I guess what they would do is they'd say, like, okay, we'll pass a law which basically authorizes it. We'll get our state legislators or our our city council people to sign on board with this, and then have the mayor sign off on it, and that will now become the law of New York City. I think it could legally pass. I just think that it's commercially disastrous, and woe unto New Yorkers 3 years after this thing starts off. Because I think they'll help drive these different companies out of business, and then the only way you'll be able to get food is by standing online for bread. So, the first Moabs was delivered by a C-130. It was a push out the back. Dale doesn't need a fancy U.S. jet delivery. They don't need a fancy U.S. jet delivery. Just give it to them. Yeah. I don't know that you really want to trust a $500 million bomb that we're just going to push out the back of the plane. I don't think that's the plan. I'm just saying, GH, I don't think the plan is let's take this $500 million bomb and just sort of have that back hanger or the plan hang out there and just be like, push.
Well, no, that thing that they're talking about is a big fuel air bomb. It's what they used in to suck the air out of caves and stuff like that. Was it called a Moab? Yeah, and they would push it out. It was like a huge, basically. Remember the movie? What is it? Outbreak with Dustin Hoffman and Cuba Gooding Jr.
Yeah,
with the monkey, that bomb that they were pushing out of the back of the thing, and it was gonna basically vaporize everything in the town and suck all the air, basically kill everyone. It sucks the oxygen out.
So it's been, I don't know, at least 2 or 3 years since I've seen Outbreak, and probably closer to 2 or 3 decades since I've seen Outbreak. So I don't remember that particular scene that you're describing. Are you saying they vaporized the town? Because I do remember
because it's like a big bomb in the back of a C-130. It was like a barometric bomb. It sucks all the air out of everything, so it basically collapses all the people's lungs and everything. Even if you don't get burned, there's no air.
So were the folks in the town saved? Did Dustin Hoffman save the day?
They dropped it over the ocean.
They found the monkey.
Found the monkey. Yeah.
All right. Sorry for ruining that movie for you. I know you at home were just about to watch it. So Andrew Cuomo and Eric Adams are also running. I think, yeah, that's true. It'll be an interesting race. And hopefully this Mamdani doesn't get anywhere near it. Would you move Joe if New York turns into USSR? I live in Jersey right now. I practice in New York, but I live in Jersey. Not that it's much better than New York. The Mayo primary is next Tuesday. Brad is scared. Well, if states are entities, then Texas for POTUS. There you go. Julio, God bless you. Thank you so much. I don't know how he's doing this from X. It looks like he's on X to me, and I don't know how he's doing it from there. But however you figure out how to do that, thank you, Julio. I appreciate the little tip, the tip there. It's very thoughtful. And Hands One Pack says there's 3 Whole Foods south of the tunnel. Where? Now I gotta find these. 3 Whole Foods south of the tunnel? Come on. South of Lincoln Tunnel. You're talking like all the way downtown. You're talking like in Chinatown area. No one considers that part. Whole Foods in New York City. Oh, look at that. Look at that. I see down. I've never even seen this. Wow. I've never been so happy to be shown wrong. I'm pulling this up right here.
Whole Foods is like super expensive, isn't it? I mean, as far as grocery stores go.
Never even seen it. I can go in there and try and check it out. I can go in and try and give you guys a report if it's that important to you. I'm looking at Whole Foods in downtown New York. Look at that. It looks like really small. But at least there's some sort of groceries. That's nice to see. That's nice to see. Every time I'm down there, I'm continually looking for some place to buy food. This is on the east side. It's on 3rd Avenue. I'm always looking near Midtown. That's all I ever am in. But you're saying that they have here, where is this? This looks like it's close to Midtown. Now I'm so curious. Look at this. They have food. Oh, this is why. Yeah, this is not real food. This is not real food. Okay, that's food. But look how small that is. This is so small. Imagine if this is your supermarket. This is it. This is your supermarket. That's not a supermarket. No one. I'm sorry. You can call it Whole Foods all you want. This is not a supermarket. I wasn't wrong. You can call it Whole Foods. You can call it Pathmark if you like. Or Key Food. I don't care. This is not a real supermarket. A real supermarket is going to have aisles and aisles and aisles of things that you can actually buy at a normal price.
Isn't it true though? Like most people that live in the
it's
city
got a produce.
Don't shop like they shop like daily or a couple times like.
Which is ridiculous.
They don't buy a week's worth of food at a time. They buy like whatever what they need that day. That's what I heard though. That's because like apartments are small. They don't have a lot of storage space in the apartment. They don't have full size refrigerators. A lot of them they have small refrigerators. And
a real supermarket doesn't have this. Like
well,
everything.
It's like the prepared food section that they have where they.
That's okay. I'm just saying. Sorry. This just looks so small to me. I've never shopped in a supermarket that just felt this small. I'm saying like the produce section. To me, I'm used to seeing row after row. I don't know. I've never been to Russia, so I don't know. I don't know what what's his face brought up. But I'll say that he technically caught me. I just wouldn't call that a supermarket. Wegmans on 8th Avenue. I never even heard of Wegmans. I don't even know what Wegmans is. Look, if there are supermarkets, I'm very happy to prove wrong. I'm very, very happy to prove wrong. I'll take the L on that.
I think what they're mainly talking about though is in the the Bronx and Harlem.
No, they're talking Manhattan.
They're talking Manhattan?
Yeah, they're talking.
No, I'm saying like the people saying there's no where to get food.
Interesting. I don't do all the shopping in my house. No, most of the shopping is done by Lady Lawgic. I buy certain things I'll buy.
According to Wikipedia in DuckDuckGo's AI assistance, it says yes, New York City has a variety of supermarkets, including large chains like Gristetti's, Trader Joe's, Whole Foods, and many others throughout the 5 boroughs. Yeah, Gristedes.
I know what that is. I know what that is. I don't know where I don't know where these were when I was working in Midtown Manhattan because I was always looking for a supermarket. But back then, the internet was not invented yet. So I'm just kidding. It's a joke. It's a joke. Can I now go to Alex Padilla? I've been waiting to watch Alex Padilla for so long.
It says Gristetti's has been feeding New Yorkers for over 100 years. They have 10 supermarkets in Manhattan. I don't know. Maybe they're
where?
I'll share a link right now. So
where?
This is crazy.
Where in Harlem?
Maybe what they're calling supermarkets and what we call supermarkets are two completely different things. It's here. It says.
When I say supermarket, it should have at least 12 aisles, and each aisle should basically be something that you can that you need to take more than 5 steps to get down the aisle. Okay.
Yeah, a supermarket should be at least 10,000 square feet.
a supermarket to me is something that it's got 12 aisles on it. Any one of those aisles at a given, if the place is quiet enough that you can take a running jump, or you can take a running leap onto the back of your shopping cart and go zooming down the aisle, and without crashing in like 4 feet later. That's a supermarket. That's what I call a supermarket. Now you want to say there's a Whole Foods or whatever. Okay, I'm telling you now, it's not a supermarket. It's got a supermarket name. It's not a supermarket. All right.
I think they're calling these supermarkets, but I think these are just markets. They're not supermarkets. I think it's the difference.
Okay.
I'm seeing all of them like H Mart.
All right. Let me find Alex Padilla here. I had it and now it's gone.
Should be in yesterday's topics, I think.
On C-SPAN? I want the whole
no.
7-minute thing that he did. He has 7 minutes that he spoke. Here it is.
Oh.
I found it. Loading an ad.
Of the U.S. Senate.
Oh my God, an hour and 42 minutes. No, that's not what I wanted. Dag nabbit. Can I just Senator Padilla? It's not 21 minutes. Tell me it's 21 minutes. I saw 7 minutes.
Ron fishing.
If your clients are only investing in public markets,
oh my gosh,
they're missing out on the 90% of companies that are privately owned. Maybe it's time for a bigger pond.
Okay.
Start building wealth for your clients with private market investments.
Senator Alex Padilla speaking about his experience after being forcibly removed from Homeland Security Secretary.
Mr. President, it's important for me, for this body, to know that over the last 2 weeks in Los Angeles, my hometown, that we've seen masked federal agents in tactical gear ordered into our communities.
Yes.
Good.
We've
Yes.
seen a disturbing
Yes.
pattern
Yes.
of increasingly
Why is that
extreme
disturbing?
and cruel immigration enforcement operations.
So it's cruel to enforce the immigration laws. Okay.
Very cruel.
People
Very cruel.
at places of worship, at schools, in courthouses, all to meet.
They won't let me go. I don't even know what Lafayette is, okay? I mean, I know where Lafayette is. You're talking. Nobody's doing business on East 8th and Lafayette. East 8th and Lafayette is basically like 3/4 of a mile north of the court district, and and roughly a mile and a half from Midtown Manhattan. No one is there. It's like the dead zone. So no.
They don't have the huge markets anymore, right? The fish markets and the meat markets like they used to have on the streets where you used to be able to go and buy like fresh meat, fresh fish, and all that.
I don't know. I'm going to say no, and the next thing I know, I'm going to have someone say, "Oh yeah, what about Delfinos? You don't know about Delfinos, Joe? Why are you sitting here?"
Well, no, because I mean, Chicago used to be the same way, and there was huge streets. There was, like Market Street was basically just all this line, but it's gone now.
I hear about O'Leary's Fish Market. That's what it's like. I'm like, no, I don't know of any. Okay, I don't know of any. Maybe I'm sure my chat here can Google and find some stupid fish market in Hell's Kitchen, and then try and say, "Aha, I got you. I got you, Joe." Okay, that's where all of New York is going. You guys got me. That Wegmans has to be at least 1.5 car coastings. Okay. Everyone's all me about Wegmans. No one is on Lafayette and East 8th. Nobody. You can get... Okay. Nobody. Trust me. No one is there. No one. No train stop there. No one. No one's there.
Quota.
I'm going to get something with someone show me in New York City an MTA map where they were like, Well, actually, Joe, you can catch the 2 train and stop off in the east of 14th Street.
Now we're seeing President Trump federalize National Guard troops and deploy them without the governor's consent.
Okay.
He doesn't need his consent.
Now being deployed, escalating tensions in our city.
Because you're not doing it.
And it's important to note all this without coordination with state and local law enforcement.
Actually, there's coordination.
And despite repeated requests for the justification for these extreme actions,
the riots,
and after months and months of little to no response from the administration on their
Wouldn't the justification be the police stations that got burned down in Minneapolis and Seattle and the months of fire bombings that occurred at the federal building in Portland? I mean,
preach it.
I mean, we don't want to have that happen again. So we're going to just, as soon as it looks like it's going to get goofy, we're just going to send in the troops. And they're not doing anything. They're just protecting the federal property. They're just standing there. If nobody shows up to do anything, guess what? There won't be no trouble.
Yeah. And that's what they want. Not no one doing anything. That's
They just want, they're just trying everything they can do to stop any immigration enforcement because they don't want to lose those congressional seats when these people go home.
Yeah, because that and also because it's something they can complain about. It's something that's visible that they can complain about. So that's really what makes them all hot and bothered. It's political talking points.
See Darth Kitty's comment, Joe.
Darth Kitty's comment?
Yeah.
No, I missed it.
Right there. This dude has a list.
Oh,
see, that's what when you said they, that's what I thought you meant when you were talking about the
I
other
don't.
guy.
I still don't know what you're talking about.
Okay, never mind.
I still don't know.
Everything in their power, but to provide transparency to the American people about their mission in
You don't hear
Los
it?
Angeles. And so last week, I chose to go home to try to get answers from the administration as they are literally militarizing our city. And I want to share what I learned. I want to share what I heard because it should shock the conscience of our country. Now, one of the first items on my schedule last Thursday was a meeting and a briefing with General Guillot, the 4-star general in charge of U.S. Northern Command. Many of you know him. The briefing was scheduled at the federal building in West Los Angeles, where they're overseeing these military operations. Now, colleagues, when the United States military is deployed domestically,
when
our troops are deployed against the wishes of the governor for the first time since 1965, against the wishes of the local mayor.
Well, why were in 1965? Why exactly was the troops deployed in 1965? Does he want to bring up what that was about? Another Democrat governor, and it was violating people's rights, and
Yeah, Jim doesn't get to hear the music. He's the only one who doesn't hear the music here. But yeah, I'm giving him a musical overlay here, which I think is appropriate for his very sad.
Oh, you were? I didn't hear it.
I know you wouldn't hear it. I know. But don't worry. You that's just on StreamYard.
Both the police and
Whoops.
the sheriff.
Oh, I heard that music. What are you doing, an Irish jig now?
Territory.
You don't hear this?
So
I hear it.
To do my duty to conduct congressional oversight and to try to get answers from the Department of Defense that state and local officials were not receiving, I went to the federal building in West Los Angeles. I was met at the entrance by a National Guardsman and an FBI agent who escorted me through security screening and up to a conference room
Such a horrible story.
Briefing.
This poor man.
While waiting for my
This poor
briefing
man.
with General Guillot, I learned that Homeland Security Secretary Newsom was holding a press conference literally just down the hall. And that press conference was causing my briefing to be delayed.
So he was mad. He was angry.
It occurred to me that, well, maybe
How dare she?
this press conference and listen in.
Listen in.
Just listen. In the hopes.
Just listen.
Just listen. That's why I came in and just immediately started screaming.
New information that could help us make sense of what was happening. I didn't just get up and go. I asked and was escorted by the National Guardsman and the FBI agent into the press conference. They opened the door for me. They accompanied me into the press briefing room. And they stood next to me as I stood there for a while, listening. And at one point, the United States Secretary of Homeland Security said that the purpose of federal law enforcement and the purpose of the United States military was to, quote, liberate Los Angeles from our governor and our mayor. To somehow liberate us from the very people that we democratically elected to lead our city and our state.
And who were keeping them in shackles.
Colleagues, let that fundamentally...
So they think they can elect somebody that will have them not follow federal law?
That is not a mission.
Maybe they want to secede?
On public safety. And that simply is not and cannot be the mission of federal law enforcement and the United States military. To my colleagues on both sides of the aisle, are we truly prepared to live in a country where the president can deploy the armed forces to decide which duly elected governors and mayors should be allowed to lead their constituents?
Only if they're not following federal law.
Is that really the precedent that we're okay with setting?
Only if they're not following federal law.
Said last year when she was governor of North Dakota, at the time she said, quote, if Joe Biden federalizes the National Guard, that would be a direct attack on states' rights. That was Governor Newsom, now Secretary Newsom.
Wait, because that was completely different. That's when they were talking about Joe Biden was going to do that because to enforce like COVID rules and stuff to make people take vaccines. Yeah, that would be completely different than people ignoring federal law and like basically letting people burn buildings down. Kind of,
you think?
Little different.
You mean because this is like an area which Congress has carved out certain powers specifically for the
the president can't, using normal forces, enforce federal laws. He gets to use the National Guard. It's right there.
It's kind of one of those things. Yeah, I would tend to agree with you on that.
Conflict. We've had tumult, but we've never had a tyrant as a commander-in-chief.
Oh, yes, you did.
And that is not by coincidence.
That was 2021 to 2025.
The American people have always been willing to speak up and exercise their First Amendment right to protest, especially when our fundamental rights have been threatened.
Except for when we weren't allowed to protest COVID restrictions, though, remember?
Right.
That
Yeah.
same
Silence you then.
that I came to revere when marching through the streets with my family and my friends in 1994 in Los Angeles.
Oh my God.
Protesting
This
against
guy.
the vile anti-immigrant rhetoric that was growing
Get to the
California
arrest.
at that time.
That's the
So
part I
he's,
really want.
he's talking about Proposition 187. If you want to stop this for 1 second, I don't know if you know what Proposition 187
I don't
was
remember that
voted on. It was the California citizens. It was a ballot initiative in 1994 to not allow illegal immigrants to get state aid. And it was overwhelming, like 70% of the vote was no, they can't get it. And then they sued, and the California Supreme Court said, you can't do this.
Really?
Oh yeah. So it was voted on and voted down, and they went and protested. And then so all this stuff about we marched in the streets and that, no, it was voted on. It was 70-30 that they said no aid for illegals. And you guys sued, and then the super liberal California Supreme Court said, yeah, that's unconstitutional. You can't say they can't have aid.
Oh.
And he turned
It's weird too. That was Proposition 187.
try to improve his political standing and his reelection chances. That fight is what inspired me to leave an engineering career behind.
Oh my God, get to the arrest.
To trying to influence
Oh, shut up.
our
All you care about
government
was the power.
and our politics.
All you care about is the power.
So I've seen this before. California has seen this before. So last week, when I heard something so blatantly un-American,
I
from the
screamed like a
Secretary
lunatic.
of Homeland Security, a cabinet
I
official,
screamed like a lunatic.
of course, I was compelled, both as a senator
No.
and as an
No.
American.
No.
To speak
No.
up.
No. You are actually prohibited from speaking up. Everyone understands this. Everyone but you. There's no reflection about anything he did wrong. He's completely just double down, triple down, no matter how wrong he was. And then you wonder, like, why it is, they're apparently protesting. There's nothing wrong with that. There's a time and a place. Time, place, and manner is what dictates your freedom of speech and your freedom of association. Time, place, and manner. That's Supreme Court, that precedent that goes back more than a century. Time, place, and manner. You don't have a right to get up there and start barking like a lunatic, which is what he was doing. Whenever you want, there's time, place, and manner restrictions.
But before I could even get out my question,
Yeah.
I was physically and aggressively forced out of the room. Even as I repeatedly announced I was a United States Senator.
No one cares!
And I had a question.
It's too bad there's not video of this whole interaction so we can see if he's telling the truth.
As the National Guardsman and the FBI agent who served as my escorts and brought me into that press briefing room stood by, silently.
That's right.
Knowing full well who I was.
Well, no one knows for sure. And you could still be a lunatic even if you're a senator.
You've seen the video.
Yeah, we have. You look like a clown.
I was pushed and pulled, struggled to maintain.
I saw him pushing on federal agents, is what I
Yeah,
saw.
that's what we all saw.
I popped the link to that Prop 187, and just so you can see what I was talking about, and this guy talking about how, we protested because rights taken away. No, it was the opposite.
And then flat on my chest. And as I was handcuffed.
And I was forced to kneel.
And marched down a hallway.
Kneel before Trump.
Why am I being detained? Not once did they tell me why.
No, I couldn't even figure out why. I don't even know
why.
why.
You never have a moment like this. But I will tell you, in that moment, a lot of questions came to my mind.
Okay, and that's where we need to pause right here and now. So now he's kneeled and he's enchained and he's handcuffed and he's saying a lot of questions came to his mind at that point in time. And I just want to speculate and put myself into the brain of Alex Padilla and ask myself, okay, I think it's possible a lot of questions did come to his mind at that moment in time. He's kneeled down there, right? So what questions do you think came to his mind at that moment in time? I actually, when I was watching this, I stopped here. I was like, I don't even want to know what he's going to say as far as his questions, because that's not true.
You need that, was it Morgan Freeman drop that says, and it's at this point that he knew he effed up.
Because to me, the questions that probably came to his mind in that juncture, the questions are, how can I milk this best? How far can I push in my resistance so that I can get hit? How bad a bruise will I get if I start cursing at them? Is it the right call cursing at them? Am I pushing it too far if I curse at them? These are the things that I think we're going through his mind. I think that's what was going through his mind. I don't know what he's going to say. I'm a little curious what he's going to say, but I know it's not true. Whatever he's going to say now, that's not the truth. But I'm sure what was going through his mind is the primary question. The only question going through his mind is, how can I best milk this further? How can I milk this moment? Like, oh, yes, look at this. I'm about to go viral. I'm a U.S. Senator. I'm about to go viral. That's right. We don't have a leader in the Democratic Party. It's about time we got a Hispanic leader in the Democratic Party. Here we go. Oh, that's right. Buckle me harder, baby. Buckle me harder. I'm telling you right now, he was looking at them and he was probably getting very, very uncomfortable feelings, not in his wrists, from the pleasure he was getting from that moment. Okay, that's what I think was going through his mind. How do I milk this? And oh yes, thank God they arrested me. That's all that was going through his head. Yeah, this is no Rodney King. He wants everyone to think he was Rodney King. All right, let's hear the questions he says were going through his mind. This should be funny.
First of all, where are they taking me? Because I know I'm not just being escorted out of the building.
Yeah.
They should have took him to Gitmo.
Am I being arrested here?
I hope so. Please arrest me. Please give me a mugshot. Let's see how well that worked for Trump.
A city already on edge from being militarized.
This was not going through his mind.
When they see their United States senator being handcuffed just for trying to ask a question.
Yeah, that never went through his mind. That question never went through his mind at all.
And what will my wife think?
Oh, she'll be proud of me. That's what he was thinking. His wife Billy, I assume, is what he was. I haven't looked up who his wife is, but I'm assuming maybe that was a bad guess. His wife Miguel is a better guess.
What will our boys think?
Oh my God, I can't. You're a clown, utter clown. Well, there you have it. Alex Padilla doing what Democrats do best, whining and crying and belly aching as they make their own news cycle or try to make their own news cycle. But yeah, these are to me, when I see folks like this guy he's Dexy's Midnight Runners. Okay, that's what he is. I look at him and I think Dexy's Midnight Runners. That's what I see. He's a one-hit wonder. He's not a power. He's hoping that he can try and find some way to skyrocket and have more hits that he can sort of, add to his resume and say, Dexy's Midnight Runners, they're basically a one-hit wonder. And this guy is a one-hit wonder. Over here, the hit was more literal, I guess. But he's a one-hit wonder. That's all he is. He's like, he has his moment of fame. No one heard of Alex Padilla before this. No one's going to remember Alex Padilla. He reminds me of Jimmy Smits in, like, what was it, season 5 of Dexter? He's about as sympathetic as him. It's not. This is nothing. This is really, really nothing. So, yeah, I do think he has aspirations beyond being senator, because let's face it, he's in DC, so they all have aspirations. But
he was appointed to fill Kamala's seat, right?
Correct. Yes. Okay. Yeah. When Kamala ascended to vice president, he was appointed, I assume, by Newsom to be the senator. So, yeah, that's Alex Padilla. No one's heard of him. No one will hear of him. More people know the junior senator from California, which is Adam Schiff, who just won election this past in 2024. So he's going to be there for a while, unfortunately. Pencil neck, creepy Adam Schiff. But yeah, that's Alex Padilla trying to milk his moment. So
yeah, they need to be like Dan Bongino and Kash Patel need to be looking into what Adam Schiff was doing in the Standard Hotel with Ed Buck. Maybe they could.
Yeah, we're not going to start going down that. We're not going down that road now. We're not going down the whole Ed Buck thing. The whole
inquiring minds would like to know.
Yeah, you at home can feel free to Google Adam Schiff, Ed Buck. You can Google it and see what comes up. You can just Google it. I don't know anything about this story. Whatever you find when you Google Ed Buck,
and Ted Lieu, the Congressman Ted Lieu, they all used to hang out.
Well, you can just Google those names: Ed Buck, Adam Schiff, and whatever you find there. Or Ted Lieu, you could throw in also. Whatever you find there is more info than I have on this. So there you go. Anyway, hey Jack, your Democrats arrested Christians for praying at abortion clinics. They arrested them for praying in church during COVID. So Yeah, no sympathy. No sympathy. They deserve zero sympathy. Really. Really. Here we go. I'm going to hear about Wegmans. This is going to be something I'm going to be hearing about from now on. I have a feeling this is going to be Civil War II, Peaceful Boogaloo. I'm a U.S. Senator. How dare you not bow to my authority, you peasant? Yeah, that's exactly what he's saying. Did they film my good
I was
side?
told repeatedly that no one is above the law.
Yeah, that's another thing. I hate when people like throw out their prestige as some sort of basis to get that they should get like different kind of treatment. I don't think he understands enough politically as to how ugly it sounds when he says that. I'm a U.S. Senator. How can you do this to me? How can you do this? I just want to go in there and ask a question. I couldn't even ask my question. Let's stop it. That's why he's a one-hit wonder. That's why you're not going to hear from him again. No one was governor of South Dakota. Padilla's a dummy, not North Dakota. Yeah, she actually had a health issue today. I don't know if there was any updates about that.
It was weird the way they were announcing it, and I didn't understand it.
It was an allergy?
It was
really?
She had an allergic reaction or something? Because the way they were announcing it, I almost thought, like, did she get poisoned? Was it an attempt on her life? Did something happen? Because it was just like she was rushed to the hospital.
It was. That's Lady Lawgic is correct. I know I wasn't. Thank you, honey. DHS Secretary Kristi Noem brought to hospital due to allergic reaction. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem was transported to a hospital on Tuesday due to an allergic reaction, the Department of Homeland Security said. Well, thank God she's okay. Noem is alerting and recovering, DHS Assistant Secretary Tricia McLaughlin said in a statement to CBS. She was brought to a hospital out of abundance of caution. Transported to GWU Hospital, source told CBS. Former South Dakota governor and U.S. Representative Noem, 53, leads an agency with over 260,000 employees, etc. All right, so there you go. All right, so she's cool. Anyway, I need to spend a little bit of time here going through the Ninth Circuit oral argument. So I just want to break that down.
All right, I'm going to drop off.
You're going to drop off. I appreciate you stopping by here, brother. Thank you so very much. And I appreciate all that you do as far as helping keep me informed, because it's very, very helpful. Enables me to actually do
I would just like to tell everybody, if you want
make
to
sure you
sign up,
sign up, and say
everybody except for Jay Liebgott, who hates me for some reason. I don't know what I ever did to him. But.
Did I get the? Did you give me the link there?
I'll put it in right now.
Yeah, send it over here to me in private chat so I can throw it into the script.
All right,
and hopefully we'll nail some subs for you.
All right,
make sure you guys check out Jim Tells You.
Let Jim tell you the news.
Let Jim tell you the news. Did you give it to me, the link? You're putting it? He's still backstage. All right, so he's going to give it to me backstage, and I'm going to incorporate it into the description, and I'll try and throw it in the chat as well. So there you go. Oh, look at this. He has a whole long written up thing. I hope you have this saved. Okay. Let me look at my dashboard. Content. 5 edits. That's a mouthful there, Jim. It's a mouthful. I'll never step another man's approach. We all got our own approaches. Here, mouthful. Sometimes I probably should use more of a mouthful. Don't do that. That was another phrasing. Why don't I see where my chat is? I don't see you guys. All right, we'll do it this way. All right, we'll do it this way. There you go. All right, we'll do it this way. Echo. Pin message, and we'll come here. Pin it over here. All right. So in case you missed it, earlier today, The Ninth Circuit decided to hear the case of Gavin Newsom versus Donald Trump, although by the time it reaches appellate level, it's Trump versus Newsom, which is why you'll see it look both ways on my channel over here. And the oral arguments, surprisingly, seem to go fairly well for Donald Trump. You wouldn't think that in the Ninth Circuit, but based on the tenor and the type of questions, if you saw when I covered live the oral arguments that were held by District Judge Breyer, you saw that a lot of the questions were being thrown at Trump's attorneys. We got sort of the opposite vibe today. The opposite vibe today, where most of the questions were being thrown at Gavin Newsom's attorneys, and he seemed to be struggling with some of them. He seemed to be struggling. So I'm going to jump to some of these questions. We're not going to go through all this because it's long. It's an hour and 10 minutes, and I'm definitely not doing that. But
challenging President Trump's order to deploy National Guard troops in
we're
response
going to jump forward. We're going to jump forward. Some of the questions being asked by the three judges here. So this is the three judges. It's a three-judge panel in the Ninth Circuit. These are the three judges who are deciding this case. And here are the two attorneys. This is Trump's attorney, and this is Gavin Newsom's attorney over here. See how they don't mind it being filmed or recorded? They're not like insecure. All right. So we're going to skip past Trump's opening argument and just jump right into some of the questions that were being asked. I'm going to go a little bit faster especially when this judge in the middle is talking, because he talks very slow.
Well, within his discretion. Again, just as to Section 3, is it the United States' position that the court has no role at all in reviewing what the president has done?
So he wants to know, he's asking now at this point, the Trump counsel, is Trump's position. Now, again, we're looking here at 10 U.S.C. 12406. This is what Trump used. This is statute Trump used to say that I have the right to federalize the California National Guard and take them over and direct them as to where they're going to go. And we saw that there's three different circumstances. And the third, and that he's primarily relying on the second and third one. If there's a threat of a rebellion is number 2. And number 3 is to help effectuate the laws of the federal statutes. So those are his bases. And the language which Gavin Newsom wants to hang his hat on says they have to act through the governor of the state. Trump's counsel said that when we serve the adjutant general, who is in the chain of command, he's right below, I think, the governor, and he's the person who oversees that part of the governor's duties. That's the same thing as serving the governor. And that's served to effectuate that. So one of the questions that Judge Breyer at the district court level was addressing is what role, if any, does the court have in trying to assess whether or not there's an uprising, whether or not he's able to, these troops are necessary to enable the president to carry out federal law, to execute federal law.
In calling forth the militia under subsection 3, or is it the United States' view that the court has a limited role and it needs to afford the president very substantial deference?
So are you saying that we have no role or a small role?
Or is it something else in deciding whether the requirements of subsection 3, inability with the regular forces to execute the laws, is met?
Thank you, Your Honor. Our view is that the statute commits the decision whether to call up the forces to the president's unreviewable discretion. So no, there's
no role for the court. It's the unreviewable discretion. When he's talking, we're going to go a little slower because he talks faster. So we'll go normal speed when he's there. But he's saying no role
for the court to play in reviewing that decision. And I think it's important to note that the statute here is very similar to the statute at issue in the Martin case that we've cited, the Act of 1795, which had a similar structure. It had the whenever clause, followed by a delegation to the president to call up the militia. And in that case, the Supreme Court in 1830 said, that's a decision that's committed to the president's discretion. It's not for a court to review that decision. The plaintiffs try to make out that decision as an outlier, but of course, there have been many cases since then involving unreviewable decisions committed to the executive. The last we cited is the Dalton case.
So is it your view that if the president or a future president simply invokes the statute, gives no reasons for doing it, provides no support for doing it, and there is nothing which would appear to a court to justify it, that the court still has no role at all in determining whether the president, this hypothetical future president, correctly invoked subsection 3? No role at all, even if the president gives no reasons and there are no facts offered by that president to support that president's decision.
That's correct, because if the statute is unreviewable, it's unreviewable. And I would point the court to the last section of the decision in Dalton, where the Supreme Court recognized, yes, Marbury versus Madison says the court decides what the law is, but it also respects that principle when a court recognizes that when a statute is delegating broad discretion to the president, that respecting that also is a judgment that a court should respect. It respects the separation of powers when Congress delegates that decision to the president. But I think, Your Honor, you're speculating about harder cases down the road. This is an easier case because there are facts in the record here that strongly support the president's decision that there was a rebellion and that the president was unable to execute federal laws under the third prong that we're focused on here today.
This is a great answer. See, what did he do there? What did he do there? He actually gave an answer. Here's the Supreme Court precedent which supports our position that there is broad discretion that's supposed to, once there's supposed to be broad discretion that's given to the president, courts have no role. But that happens to not be the case over here, because you were talking a hypothetical. Let's say a president were to act and not give any justification and just act and say, I need help from this state's National Guard in carrying out federal law. And he doesn't explain why. He doesn't explain what's happening. In that case, the question is, would he have a role? Does he have the right, in Trump's opinion, to actually just federalize them? And he's like, but that's not what really would happen here. You're talking about what might happen down the road. Okay, but that's not even. So first and foremost, they wouldn't. And that's also not what happened here, because Trump did give justification for why it is that he was coming in.
And what if, would your answer to Judge Bennett's question be the same if in the hypothetical, the president articulated a justification for his action that was not one of the enumerated purposes in 12406?
Again, I think I would give you the same answer, Your Honor, that if it's unreviewable, it's unreviewable. The Martin case also acknowledged, yes, there can be cases where discretion can be abused, but in that situation, there are other checks on the president through the political process. It's not for a court to exceed its authority, just because there may be hypothetical cases in the future where the president may abuse his authority. The president hasn't done that here.
No, go ahead. Sorry.
So suppose that we don't agree that the question is completely unreviewable. What does it mean for the president to be unable with regular forces to execute the laws?
It means, in his judgment, the regular forces on the ground in Los Angeles aren't adequate and sufficient for him, in his judgment, under the Take Care Clause of the Constitution, to carry out the laws and enforce the laws. And in here, I think the Santa Cruz declarations make that pretty clear. Paragraph 7, for example, talks about specific immigration enforcement actions that were unable to be accomplished because of the mob violence preventing ICE officers in Los Angeles from carrying out those actions.
In the normal course, the level of resistance encountered by federal law enforcement officers is not zero, right? You go to arrest people, and sometimes they don't want to be arrested, and they run away or even resort to violence. And
yeah, but now they're being abetted by third parties. That's the difference.
Sometimes they get away. So does that mean that the president, every day is unable to execute the laws, and he could invoke this, whenever?
Well, I think, let's remember, the president also takes an oath to support and defend the Constitution. He has an obligation to take care that the laws are faithfully executed. And I would point the court to the language about the regular forces, right? That, I think, provides some guidance to the president about, look, if regular forces are capable of addressing, the one-off situation where there's resistance to federal authority, there's no need to invoke this statute. But what we have here is a documented record of sustained, ongoing mob violence continuing through this past weekend in the supplemental declaration that we filed that explained there were 1,000 violent protesters this past weekend outside the federal buildings, and it required the National Guard. They were essential to protect that building from breaches that had occurred the prior weekend.
So is the United States still arguing that this case is governed by the political question doctrine?
I think that's an alternative argument. The argument we're pressing today and in our motions papers are, the Dalton and Martin line of cases that this statute confers unreviewable discretion on the president.
But with regard to your alternative argument about the political question doctrine, are you aware of any Supreme Court or Court of Appeals case in which the political question doctrine has been applied to a claim alleging that the executive branch violated a statute?
I don't know off the top of my head, Your Honor. Again, the argument that we're pressing today is based on Dalton and Martin, that the statute here confers unreviewable discretion on the president. We're not, at least for purposes of this motion, we're not pressing the political question doctrine.
Are you familiar with the 1932 Supreme Court case of Sterling versus Constantine?
I'm not familiar with that case, Your Honor.
All right. I would just note that in that case, in discussing this power of the president and prior cases, the court said the nature of the power also necessarily implies that there is a permitted range of honest judgment as to the measures to be taken in meeting force with force and restoring order. And I'm not going to ask you further about the case since you're not familiar with it.
That sounds like it supports Trump, that case.
But I take it the United States' position, again, in answer to Judge Miller's question, is even if we reject your view that it's absolutely unreviewable within the language I just read, it's the United States' view that it fits, the facts here fit comfortably within that language.
There you go. This is a guy here. This is a guy here who's agreeing with Trump. He's like, even if you don't want to go along and we say it is reviewable, since you know, by the yardstick of the Sterling case, you're still good.
I think that's right, Your Honor. Again, so even assuming this is not a political question and that this is something that wouldn't fall within that line of cases, there is this line of cases, Dalton, Martin, involving statutes that delegate broad discretion to the president. There's a long history of courts not reviewing the president's discretionary decisions. And I would point to the language of this particular statute. It says the president may call into federal service members and units that he deems necessary. Right, so that is an express delegation of Congress's power to call up the militia to the president.
Well, it's in such numbers as he considers necessary, right?
Correct. So the president has the discretion to decide what level of forces are necessary to counter the threat, and the threat is in the last phrase of that first sentence: necessary to repel the invasions.
Well, I feel fairly confident that Bennett over here, who's in the center, we have Bennett, Miller, and Sung, which sounds like the name of some '60s folk band. Bennett, Miller, and Sung. So Bennett here seems as if he's on board. We need to basically get one of these two on the wing here to go along with Trump.
Suppress the rebellion or execute those laws. And in the president's judgment, 2,000 National Guardsmen from California are necessary to execute the laws in California. And the record bears that out, based on the fact that we have declarants from ICE explaining that the National Guardsmen are essential right now to protect the federal buildings from additional breaches and violent rioting involving fireworks, Molotov cocktails, concrete chunks being thrown at ICE officers who are simply trying to...
Dogs and cats living together. We're talking chaos.
Enforcement operations and trying to breach the buildings.
So suppose that we had a hypothetical where, suppose there was no violence, no organized opposition at all. Everything is calm in Los Angeles. And the president says, you know, I decided that there is a numerical target for the number of removals I would like to have. And with the number of ICE officers that I'm able to hire using the funds that Congress has appropriated, I can't hit that target. Therefore, I find that I'm unable to execute the laws, and so I need to call up the National Guard under Section 6. Setting aside, I understand your first line argument that the judgment is completely unreviewable. Do you think that would meet the definition of unable to execute the laws?
That's a great question. That's a great question. So let's assume there was no blowback. Let's assume for a moment that no one on the left was trying to prevent the apprehension of these folks. But because I only have in California a total of 1,000 ICE agents, and that only enables me to round up, let's say, 5,000, 10,000 people a month, and I want to be getting 100,000 a month. So, and these people are all in violation of the law. So I'm going to say, hey, I need the California Guard, and I need the New York Guard, and I need the New Jersey Guard, and I need the Georgia Guard. I need every guard here because I need all hands on deck. So is it your position that since he's trying to execute the laws of the federal law and he doesn't have adequate resources, that would thereby enable him to federalize, even if there was no if there was 0 people standing in his way just to increase the overall numbers and performance of enacting federal law? It's a great question. I would say the answer is yes. But
it certainly could be. Again, it would fall within the president's discretion based on the facts available to him. If we're in a world where this is not reviewable, then that would be a decision that the president could make. And if it's an abuse of that authority, there are measures or means by which the other branches of Congress can check that decision. But I think the conditions also suggest some type of intervening event rather than an election, right? Like an invasion in the first prong suggests there's some type of activity that interferes with the security of the United States. The second prong, rebellion that rises up. The third prong, some external force or activity, right? That requires the president to act.
very smart answer from this young man here. A very smart answer, because it feels like a trap. The question that Miller is asking here feels like a trap, because then they're going to say, well, by your arguments, you can always federalize. Anyone can federalize anyone anytime they want. And that's where he's basically trying to create a fallacy. I think it's called ridiculo ad absurdum, or absurdum ad ridiculo, something like that. So a fallacy, something to that effect, where you push an argument, a position to its logical extreme until it sounds ridiculous. So the point here that he's trying to make is, hey, that you can read this statute. I would say yes, but even if you don't want to say yes with me on that, the reality is you can easily read this statute to imply there's some sort of intervening force, and as soon as he's making the allegation of intervening force, you no longer have a right to review it.
Not an election, but again, I think that would be within
a mere dissatisfaction with the level of the regular forces that Congress had provided would not be enough under that definition.
Well, I wouldn't want to concede that, Your Honor. I think that would be the president's decision based on all the facts available to him, and the record may support it in a particular case. But obviously, that's not what happened in this case. The president acted.
So counsel, let me ask a question based on Judge Miller's hypothetical. So let's take a look at the facts that Judge Miller posited, and let's say that the problem was limited to California, that there was nothing to suggest that the problem was beyond California. In your view, if a hypothetical future president made the decision to call up in response the militia of every state and the District of Columbia, so 51 militia, would it also be your view that that decision by this hypothetical future president would be entirely unreviewable?
Yes, because the statute says the president may call into federal service members and units of the Guard of any state in such numbers that he considers necessary. That is an express delegation that couldn't be any more clear, that the president gets to decide how many forces are necessary to quell the rebellion, to execute federal laws. But again, bringing it back to this case, of course, that's not what he did in this case. He only called up 2,000 National Guardsmen. The Secretary of Defense found it was necessary to call up an additional 2,000. And the facts on the ground have justified that decision. Those guardsmen are necessary on the ground today to prevent breaches of the federal buildings, to protect ICE officers when they are conducting their law enforcement operations. The guardsmen are not conducting law enforcement. They are charged with a protective mission, not a law enforcement mission. I'm happy to talk further about the conditions, but I also like to talk about the second issue that the district court focused on, which was whether the Secretary of Defense committed a technical violation.
I'll jump ahead here a
issuing
little bit.
The orders through the California government.
The next issue.
Good afternoon, Your Honors, and may it please the court. Samuel Harbert on behalf of the Governor and State of California. Defendant's motion for a stay pending appeal should be denied. The framers of our Constitution gave
This
Congress
is Newsom's
the authority
lawyer.
to enact statutes governing when the president may call forth a state's National Guard into federal service. The only statute invoked here, 10 U.S.C. Section 12.
Little known fact: he's the first lawyer to appear before the Ninth Circuit, who was brought to the who was brought to work that day by his babysitter.
406 requires that one of three factual predicates exist before that authority may be exercised, and requires that the federalization order be issued, quote, through the governor. But on June 7th, for the first time in our nation's history, defendants federalized thousands of members of the state National Guard in circumstances where none of those factual predicates exist, and they circumvented the governor, who did not receive the order and who certainly did not issue it. For those reasons, the district court rightly held that the state is likely to prevail in showing that these actions exceeded the proper bounds of executive authority.
He probably doesn't sound compelling to you, but you just wait till his voice changes.
Each of the equitable factors counsels strongly against a stay pending appeal, which would allow defendants to prolong this unprecedented, unlawful executive action. To be sure, Los Angeles has seen certain episodes of unrest and even violence in recent days, including violence directed at state and local law enforcement officials. The state has strongly condemned these acts, and it has responded forcefully to them. And I would appreciate the opportunity at some point in my time this afternoon to respond to the suggestion from the other side that the state has been unwilling or unable to respond. A stay pending appeal would profoundly injure the state of California and our nation more generally. It would allow defendants to continue diverting thousands of guardsmen away from critical work at the state level, including wildfire prevention and drug interdiction. It would allow defendants to further escalate tensions and the risk of violence in the city of Los Angeles. And it would defy our constitutional traditions of preserving state sovereignty, of providing judicial review for the legality of executive action, of safeguarding our cherished rights to political protest, and of keeping the military.
Counsel, I want to start with one part of the district court's order. And as I read the district court's order on page 23 of the order, I believe it's denominated A283 in the record. I read the district court's order as saying that as long as the president can in some way or manner execute the laws of the United States, that subsection 3 of 12406 isn't met. That although there's no numbers in there, it suggests that if the president can 50% execute the laws, or 70% or 80%, or maybe even 15%, that this isn't met, and that what is required is that the president be wholly unable to execute the laws of the United States for him to be able to invoke the statute. So my first question is,
do you agree with that retarded position by Judge Breyer?
Am I reading the district court's order right? If I'm not, please tell me where I'm wrong. And if I am reading it right, does California agree with the district court's reading of the statute?
Your Honor, I'm not sure that the district court's analysis there needs to be read so expansively, and the state is certainly not asking the court to adopt that interpretation of prong 3. All we're asking the court to conclude, at least at this very early stage of the litigation, is at a bare minimum for prong 3 of the statute to exert any meaningful limit on executive authority in this area. It has to mean more than what defendants are suggesting. It has to at least mean that the president comes forward with some attempted justification, or at least an attempt to exhaust or at least contemplate more modest alternatives than immediately reaching for the most.
But going back to a case that the United States cites, Martin v. Mott, I mean, one of the things the court said in that case is we are all of opinion that the authority to decide whether the exigency has arisen belongs exclusively to the president, and that his decision is conclusive upon all other persons. And the court was including itself in the all other persons. Even if we were to agree with you that there is some limited role of judicial review, how can, with the facts here and the language in Martin v. Mott, how can that test be met here by the state to justify an injunction against the president's actions?
Your Honor, I'd like to respond to Martin and then also explain why the state believes the modern language of Section 12406 can't support the highly deferential essentially
modern language
of authority under the prong of the statute that the government is advancing here. So as to Martin, it was a very different case. It involved the determination of a foreign invasion. It's also decided many years ago, well before the emergence of modern political questions.
That's literally what's happening here. So I'm not sure how that's a very different case to me.
Doctrine cases like Zivotofsky, which say that when a court is addressing a core legal issue like interpretation of a statute as here, or the Constitution, that is a core exercise of judicial review. It's something that courts have a virtually unflagging obligation to do when they have jurisdiction. And I would add, as to Martin, Your Honor, the government has been making a very similar argument based on that case in the Alien Enemies Act context across the country. And as far as I'm aware, courts have uniformly rejected the government's very similar argument invoking Martin in that context, which involves the Alien Enemies Act, which implicates at least something closer to the types of foreign policy or national security considerations that have traditionally led courts not to deem cases justiciable.
So if we were to agree with you that there is some judicial review here, how much discretion, if any, does California believe the president's judgment that this is necessary for him to comply with the take care clause and to take care that the laws be faithfully executed? How much discretion does he have, in California's view, under this statute in deciding when to federalize?
Your Honor, two answers. So I do think looking at the text of Section 12406, it's important to recognize that this statute illustrates Congress knows how to accord substantial discretion to the president when it wants to do so, because it does accord that type of discretion after a federalization decision has been properly made, consistent with the factual predicates in terms of the numbers of troops that the president deems appropriate to respond to the situation that justified federalization. You don't see that language in the factual predicates justifying the initial federalization decision. And it's an established feature of statutory interpretation that when Congress uses language in one part of the statute but omits it in another, courts presume that the omission is intentional. Now,
does that mean we were, I'm sorry, go ahead. Sorry,
if we were writing on a blank slate, I would tend to agree with you. But the problem that I see for you is that Mott seemed to be dealing with very similar phrasing about whenever there is an invasion, then the president has discretion. And it seemingly rejected the exact argument that you're making and seemed to broadly hold that even with that turn of phrase and that structure of the sentence, Congress was essentially giving the president the authority, the exclusive authority to determine whether the exigency existed.
Uh-oh, that's not good. That's not good. Okay, I think we're gonna see Timmy. You're gonna see Timmy here. If you see like if he was a little, if the camera panned a little lower, you would see a trail of yellow going down his leg right now.
So how do you deal with that?
Your Honor, two very important distinctions with Mott. The first is one I mentioned a moment ago, which is the determination about a foreign invasion implicates sensitive foreign policy.
Right, I understand the factual difference, but what I'm asking for you to address is the textual similarity.
The textual similarity, as we understand, Martin, the approach that the court took there was not based on the particular language in the statute. It was based on the sensitive considerations involving foreign policy. And it was a very different context because there you had a plaintiff who was a member of the state militia, a low-ranking member of the military, objecting to a command coming from on high. And courts throughout our history have been reluctant to directly intervene in the chain of command in that manner. But in terms of, Judge Bennett, to get back to the second aspect of your question about whether we see room for any deference or discretion to the president here, we don't have a problem with according the president some level of appropriate deference based upon his experience implementing federal law. The problem as we see it is that there's really nothing to defer to here because the president has not even attempted. Defendants have made no attempt whatsoever to provide argument or evidence that they even contemplated more modest measures to the extreme response of calling in the National Guard and militarizing.
Where in the statute does it say he has to?
Sorry, can I ask you to go back to the first part of this answer where you were responding to Judge Sung and distinguishing Mott on the ground that it involves a foreign invasion and a militiaman rather than somebody else challenging it. And I agree those are both factual differences. But how do you deal with Luther against Borden not very long after Mott seems to have read the opinion in a way that didn't attach significance to either of those distinctions? I mean, that Luther was not a foreign case, was not about somebody in the chain of command.
So he's like, okay, so Mott kills you. It kills your entire case. That one's killing you. And now you want to try and distinguish, but we got this other Luther case, which basically reads it consistent with the Trump position here. So, and ignores the distinctions you're making. So that kind of blows this argument out of the water that you're making now.
Command, and the court read it for this fairly broad preclusion of review of the president's decisions about when to call forth the militia. So what do we do with that?
Your Honor, I think that the court sitting today in 2025.
She's writing now. That's also a good sign. When he's on the ropes and when they start writing while one side's on the ropes, that's a good sign. That's a sign that the side that's on the ropes, they're usually writing, here's why they lose. That's when she's sitting there looking down writing, that's usually what they're writing is like, here's why you lose because of the point that's being made right here, right now.
Should be quite cautious about relying on older authorities in this area, given the shifts over the years in the political question doctrine, justiciability doctrines, but also given the historical development of the strong norm in this country against military involvement in civilian affairs. So cases that predated the Posse Comitatus Act, for example, I think need to be looked at least with some caution before they're too readily or quickly applied to the circumstances of the sort we have here.
But those are maybe good arguments for the Supreme Court to reconsider those cases, but they've told us repeatedly that when there is a case that is directly applicable to an issue, even if we think it's been undercut by later developments and other areas of the law or other statutes, as you mentioned, or other Supreme Court cases. We're supposed to follow the applicable case and leave it to them to overrule it. So,
yeah, you're asking us to overrule Supreme Court precedent because of developments that have happened. That's a little above our pay grade.
I guess my question is, what can we as a Court of Appeals do with that argument?
Your Honor, I think for one thing, you can look to the other lower court cases around the country that have distinguished Martin in recent weeks and months in the Alien Enemies Act context as persuasive authority. I mean, I also think you can recognize that those older cases you're mentioning did not consider statutory language identical to the third prong of the statute here, or the government's extraordinary argument, which I think really does reduce down to the position that that the president can federalize National Guard forces as soon as he makes a judgment that civilian federal law enforcement officials cannot do the job as they've been doing it in ideal circumstances or face any obstacles. Or to put it another way, as we understand the government's position on the third prong, they essentially have a binary view of the world, where there's world A, where federal officials like ICE agents are enforcing the law as they prefer, and then world B, they encounter any obstacle, and then the president can immediately reach for the most extreme possible measure on the table, which is federalizing National Guard troops. As we see it, there are gradations in between those two worlds, and at a minimum, prong 3 requires the president to make a showing that he's at least contemplated alternative, more modest measures before calling in the National Guard.
So counsel, even if I were to agree with you that the position advanced by the government that there's no review were wrong, where in the jurisprudence of the take care clause or the language of this statute is the president, with significant deference at least, required to have judicial review of whether he considered lesser measures?
Yeah, that's exactly what I just said. Where does the statute say that? We already know that the Constitution requires the president to take care of the federal laws. That's what he's referring to when he says the take care clause. It's his duty to take care to ensure that federal law is being executed. So with that, where are you reading this into the statute and coming up with that he has to consider other options? Where's that coming from?
Where does that spring from, even if we were to agree with you that we have some ability to review the president's actions?
Your Honor, as we see it, it comes from the plain text of the third prong of section 12406, which of course is one of the laws that the president has a duty to take care is faithfully executed. And it says unable, not just unable in general, but unable with the regular forces to execute the laws of the United States. And I point the court to opposing counsel's definition of regular forces offered before the district court. This is from the district court transcript, which I believe is available on the court's electronic docket.
We have it.
It said regular forces, quote, means everything other than the state National Guard. It could be local police, it could be federal marshals, it could be the Marines. Now, our position, which I think is really quite modest, is that given the enormous resources and personnel available to the federal government encompassed within that definition of regular forces, there at least needs to be some consideration of whether there are more modest measures than calling forth the National Guard before taking that brave and extraordinary step. And in terms of highlighting why that step is so extraordinary, why it's been so rare in our history, I point the
I was the little girl on that school bus.
court to the amicus brief filed by high-ranking former military leaders, including former secretaries of the Navy and the Army, former four-star generals and admirals, who have explained the grave threat to the country's democratic traditions of licensing the government to adopt the expansive, near limitless reading of Section 12406 that it's articulated in this case. As that brief explains, this poses a risk, makes it all too easy for a president to call forth the National Guard to serve a domestic political policy agenda in a way that threatens to impugn, call into question the historic neutrality, impartiality, integrity of the military in the eyes of the public.
Counsel, that brief seemed to offer a lot of reasons why the president's decision was should have been counseled against, and that they wouldn't have agreed with it, and that it's bad for policy, let's say. But I think it stopped short of saying the president couldn't do that, couldn't make that decision. Is there something in that brief that you think was saying the president was not actually able to make this decision?
Yes, Your Honor, in the sense that it highlights the great consequences of an overly.
No, but that he legally couldn't Not what you think is bad policy. You're still going down when you're saying the consequences. That's the policy. You're talking about what the law says, though.
Expansive
I think this might be 3-0 in favor of Trump.
interpretation of Section 12406, and that should inform the way that the court reads the statute. But that's not the only significant consequence the court should bear in mind. It should also consider the profound effect on our federal structure of government and the balance of power between states and the federal government. Our framers made the decision, it's reflected in the text of Article 1's militia clauses, to generally leave to state governments control over the militia, today the National Guard. What we see is that decision, the wisdom of that decision has endured over the years. And one of the most concrete ways to see that in this case is to look at the declarations filed in district court, which detail the critical functions performed by the California National Guard at the state level. That's central to our claim of irreparable harm in this case of leaving the state in effect. It's also central to the federalism concerns that we've raised that should animate the court's approach to construing Section 12406. I'd also, Your Honor, to the extent it's relevant to the court's determination of the third prong of Section 12406, I'd like to push back quite forcefully on opposing counsel's suggestion that state and local leaders, including law enforcement agents, are unwilling or unable to address the situation on the ground in Los Angeles. I think the factual record shows otherwise, including the Santa Cruz declaration that opposing counsel relied heavily on. We would encourage the court to rely on that declaration because it really highlights all of the efforts that state and local law enforcement have been making in recent days to respond to the situation.
Look, I'm going to give Timmy some credit here. He's swinging. He's swinging as hard as he can. He's just run up across three judges who wondrously seem to be feeling like he's just like a bad law here for him.
That includes making arrests. I think that the current number is around 1,000 arrests. There are thousands of state and local law enforcement officers that have been deployed. Local leaders have imposed a curfew in the affected areas between the hours of 8 p.m. and 6 a.m. There are other steps that have been taken as well, including using authority under state law to order unlawful assemblies and disperse crowds as necessary. State and local law enforcement officials are well trained in crowd control and management of civil unrest.
And counsel, I'm sure that all of your clients subscribe to what you put at page 1 of your opposition to the stay request. To be clear, the civil unrest in Los Angeles is a serious matter. Violence against government officers and property is unacceptable.
Absolutely, Your Honor. And the state and local leaders have roundly and repeatedly condemned this violence, which includes episodes unrest not just directed against federal officials, but against state and local law enforcement officials as well. So it is a profound concern to the leaders of the state, but the state is dealing with it. Local law enforcement agencies are doing their job of dealing with it. And to get back to a suggestion that Judge Miller made to opposing counsel, which I agree with, that in terms of evaluating kind of the baseline when considering an invocation of prong 3 of the statute, it's worth stepping back and remembering that we're talking about federal law enforcement agencies that regularly encounter dangerous conditions in the field when doing their work. And so the question is
with having
the delta so
thousands of people
are we in a
trying
world
to
that's
kill
so
them?
different from normal conditions as
Yes.
to justify an extreme measure?
But that's not
like
that's not the
militarizing
judge's
situation
call.
when
That's
the
the
National
point.
Guard,
You're
we don't
ignoring
think
everything
that
here.
The federal government has even
Now
made the
you're
first
now you're
step at seriously
swinging
attempting to
late.
satisfy that standard. If I could, Your Honors, I'd like to turn to the through the governor requirements that the district court also applied. We acknowledge that there's some ambiguity in the meaning of this requirement, but we don't think it can credibly mean what the federal government suggests, because
So this now he's basically like, I think I lost on this point here. Let me try and get them out on technicality that he didn't go through the governor, and say, try and convince you that his failure to follow proper procedure is a basis for you to knock him out.
what that suggests is that while the Congress in 1908 added this language, it can be satisfied according to defendants by not involving the governor in any way, shape, or form. And then at the end of the process, when the decision is made, when the final document is issued, to just slap a label saying through the governor at the top of the document.
What is
go ahead, Judge Miller.
What is your understanding of how it's supposed to work? So if the president, I guess, with Secretary of Defense, writes up the order, sends it to the governor. If the governor then looks at it, says, this is interesting, sticks it in his drawer, goes out to lunch, what happens then?
Your Honor, I want to highlight just how far we are away from that.
I understand, and I'm
There's
not
no attempt to comply with it.
anyone in the
Your
state.
Honor,
Just hypothetically,
Our position is that the best understanding in light of our general expectation in our system that when Congress seeks to involve government officials, it seeks to promote rather than undermining federalism and state sovereignty. So we think the best reading would be that the governor's consent is required, but we don't think the court needs to go nearly that far to agree with us that there was a violation here. Because
his
at a minimum,
consent is
we think
required?
that issuance through the governor requires notifying the governor of the federalization decision and asking him to issue it, which would give the governor a chance to consult, at least consult on the scope of the president.
So where does the statute say that issuing it through the governor requires either the governor's consent or requires consultation with the governor? Where in the text do you take that from?
Your Honor, we take it from in the plain meaning of through the governor. So that's the first step. What does it mean to be issued through the governor? For the governor to issue it, we think at a minimum that means that the governor needs to be informed of it.
Okay, yeah. This is the answer he's giving, but from the fact that you're being asked this question, it means the court is not reading it that way, because then they wouldn't be asking the question.
Given the chance to issue it. And here's why we think that the statute should be read to include at least a consultation opportunity, because the defendant's contrary view would pose very serious constitutional questions. So under their view, they can just do the whole process without consulting the governor at all, and then slap his name at the top of the document at the end of the process. That risks blurring the lines of political accountability in much the same way.
Political accountability?
As the commandeering laws that were struck down by the Supreme Court in cases.
Political accountability? That what, now he's going to lose? He's going to lose his next election because of that? That's the problem? Really? So the reason that the Congress put this in there was to make sure that people know who to vote for and who not to vote for? That's a pretty silly sounding argument.
Like Prince and like Murphy, it essentially forces the governor to share in the political responsibility for.
So if we were to disagree with your reading and looked at this as a ministerial task that's in the statute, would there still have been more that the United States would have been required to do other than sending this to the adjutant, who is the governor's subordinate and issues all orders in the name of the governor? Would there have had to have been something directly to the governor's email or mailed? I'm not trying to be facetious here, but if we disagree with you about consultation and consent, was there anything more that needed to be done here as a technical matter in your view?
In our view, yes, Your Honor, to issue it through the governor, it needs to at least go to the governor. But if I could, I would like to take one more pass at persuading you that the
because I know I'm losing so far.
Federal government's interpretation just can't be right. As I understand it, they do present it as a purely ministerial requirement, essentially a routing requirement to ensure that there's not command confusion in the event that the state guard is transferred to federal authority. The reason we don't think that can be right is there are other federal statutes, most notably the Insurrection Act, which similarly allowed the transfer of the National Guard to federal authority and posed the very same types of chain of command confusion the defendants have highlighted here. Those statutes do not include the same through the governor language. So Congress would have had it must have had something else in mind when it deliberately chose to add this language to the statute in 1908.
And I just add, it's a very roundabout way, of imposing a consultation requirement. It seems like on your reading, they should have said, orders for these purposes shall be issued after consultation with the governor or something like that. This is a very indirect way of accomplishing that purpose, if that was the purpose, isn't it?
Not so sure it's indirect, Your Honor. I think when Congress imposed an issuance through the governor requirement, they were contemplating good faith on both sides and that there would be some level of coordination involved. And just one more.
What you're seeing here is the classic fallacy that all law students go through. And I'm willing to bet that he has gone all the way through law school, where it's like when you start getting involved in an argument, it's almost like you think you don't realize the stink of your own farts, where you basically don't recognize how ridiculous the point you're making sounds. And that's what Judge Miller is basically pointing out to him. It's like you're reading all this into this, and you've been propped up by District Judge Breyer into thinking that this is a sound argument that you're making. But why would Congress have this weird, tiny little language instead of just putting in there, after consultation with the governor, he shall? it's really just an extra 4 words they could put in there. Instead, you're saying that Congress is hoping that the court will read into this text after consultation from the words through the governor, even though they decided not to put after consultation. He's like, no, it has to be that. It has to be that. The reason you start thinking it has to be that is because you haven't really been challenged on it. And because you start thinking, oh, okay, maybe we can try to read in this whole consultation notion, provision into this statute, even though it's not there. And you start convincing yourself of it until you don't realize how the stench of your argument is reeking. It doesn't make sense. You start losing track of the fact that it just doesn't make any sense why Congress would write it that way. You start thinking, no, because they're being brief, or because that's what obviously it has to mean. It's the plain meaning, or whatever. And they're like, that's not what the meaning just says. It looks like it's ministerial.
Point on this as evidence that
And ministerial, in case you're unfamiliar with what I mean by that word, what the court means by that word, is like it's just a matter of form. It's a matter of just like, okay, just give him a heads up. But yeah, you can slap his name on it. Not that like this isn't a vital step.
our reading of the statute is correct. I'd actually point you to the president's memorandum on June 7th itself, which directed Secretary Hegseth to, quote, coordinate with the governors of the states. That suggests that even the president saw this statute as imposing some type of consultation or coordination requirement.
Now you're really
Of course,
reaching.
Secretary Hegseth did not do so.
And what about, Judge Bennett alluded to this provision of state law a moment ago, but just as a general matter, under principles of agency law, if you have to notify someone or get someone's consent or do something through someone, that means someone or that person's agent. And here, like I said, the Military and Veterans Code, Section 163 of state law says that the Adjutant General can issue orders in the name of the governor. So it would seem like the state has made the Adjutant General effectively the substitute for the governor in this context. So why wasn't it enough that they sent it to that officer?
Even if it was the
That's not
governor,
our
through the
understanding of
governor.
that provision of state laws. We understand that the Adjutant General still has an obligation to communicate and coordinate with and take orders.
Some of the failings on the Adjutant General's part. It's not on Trump's part. It's on the Adjutant General.
From the state's chief executive and the commander in chief of the armed forces under the California Constitution with respect to the National Guard. It's just after those decisions.
The point being, when I sued Judge Merchan, so I was directed to serve Alvin Bragg. You think I met Alvin Bragg? No, there's a receiving agent you go to and you give it to them. So too, when you go to the receiving agent for Gavin Newsom, that's the Adjutant General for this type of order. It's really that simple.
Are made, the Adjutant General has authority to issue orders in the name of the governor. So we don't read it in the expansive way that
you can give a thank you.
All of his duties under Section 163 are as prescribed by the governor, and he shall issue all orders in the name of the governor. And this is a statute that's been around for a while, yeah?
It has, Your Honor, and as I mentioned,
eyebrow raise.
We don't.
Did you see the eyebrow raise there? He's like, I think, come on. He's acting. The state of California says he can act for the governor. That was great. Look at the eyebrow raise. That was great from Judge Bennett over here.
And this is a statute that's been around for a while, yeah?
Boom. 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 Oh, my God. Oh, my God. Poor Timmy. Poor Timmy. Someone get him an ice pack. It should say Gavin needs a pocket veto. Gavin needs a lot of things. Gavin's already got too much in his pockets.
It has, Your Honor, and as I mentioned, we don't read it as the federal government does. I'd also point out, just because that state law may give the Adjutant General certain authorities, that doesn't mean that the president has certain authority to issue orders through the name of the governor under federal law. And we know from the plain text of Section 12406 that Congress knew how to allow orders to be issued through a commanding officer, because that is the process prescribed with respect to the National Guard of the District of Columbia.
But that prescription is federal law.
It is, Your Honor.
The DC prescription, I take the reason they mentioned that there is because that is a matter of federal law over which the Congress has control.
My point is simply that the text illustrates that Congress knew how to allow an order to be issued through a commanding officer instead of a chief executive, and it didn't do that with respect to the governors of the 50 sovereign states.
Council, I want to go back to the what you're arguing in terms of the conditions necessary for the president to exercise its calling forth power as delegated by the statute. I hear you arguing that the exigency required under subsection 3, essentially the inability to execute the laws with the regular forces, wasn't met. I don't hear you arguing that the president cannot rely on that subsection based on anything it said in the executive order, or that it wasn't properly invoked or relied on. I hear you arguing that we can and should consider the evidence put forth before the district court, not that we would be limited to what's in the executive order. So are you conceding those points?
If I understand the question, I certainly acknowledge that, yes, the district court should have been looking at the evidence put forward by the federal
To be fair, I don't understand how she worded that question either. So
government to try to satisfy the factual predicates required under section 12406. And as the district court rightly concluded, the federal government had failed to provide argument or evidence that would even really make a serious attempt at satisfying that predicate, because it didn't even suggest that it contemplated more modest measures than calling in the National Guard.
I'll try to clarify my question. You are not arguing that we would be limited only to what was stated in the executive order to determine whether the factual basis is there. Is that correct?
I see. That's correct.
And you're not arguing that the executive order failed to rely on subsection 3 or invoke subsection 3. Is that correct?
That's not an argument that we've made, at least at this preliminary stage of the litigation. That's right. Although I do think it's notable that the federal government has principally relied in its papers and in the executive order on prong 2, which I do think suggests that they understood they didn't make a serious effort to show evidence or argument as to prong 3.
Okay.
Your Honors, with permission of the court, I know that I've gone past my time. I would like to very briefly address irreparable harm.
That's fine, counsel. Please do so.
Thank you, Your Honor. We would ask the court to reject the government's motion for a stay pending appeal, because every day that the stay remains in effect, it causes these two principal forms of irreparable harm.
This part, I think he's going down. I think he's going down. I'm hoping it's 3-0, just to show up that Judge Breyer was completely totted. So I'm hoping that he goes down 3-0 and that no one actually sides with him. But we'll have to see. It looks like there's a chance that I think Trump's going to take it. I think that I think the Ninth Circuit's going to find in his favor. So anyhow, that's what we got. I've been here for over 3 hours. It's time for me to start landing that plane and do so quickly. Plane is like an emergency landing mode. It is. So with that, you've been forewarned. I hope that your trays are in the upright locked positions. Make sure your baggage is safely stowed under your seat. Don't touch that lab meat. It's not meant for you. It's meant for Timmy, they, them. And don't eat the bugs. Just don't do it. Just trust me. I'm going to walk you through it. Just trust me. Don't eat the bugs. Don't do it. I thank you all for joining me. I expect to be back here, God willing, tomorrow evening. Till then, Godspeed.